Rissa, wait! Hold on. That's, wait, gotta turn that down. Wait, let me go here. Yeah, wait, and then? Okay, wait, and? The name game. Come on, everybody. It's the name game. I said, let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. I can't sing the name game with this music going, so I'm gonna turn down the Outer Worlds. You'll be able to still hear it, but I won't hear it. I said, now come on, everybody. I said, now let's play a game. I bet you I can make a rhyme out of anybody's name. The first letter of the name. I treat it like it wasn't there. And then a B or an F. Or an M will appear. And then I say bo at a B, then I say the name, then banana, fanner, and foe. And then I say the name again with an F, very plain, then a fee, fi, and a mo. And then I say the name again with an M this time, and the resonant a name that I can't rhyme. Rissa, 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 Bobissa, Banana, Fana, Fofissa, Fee, Fi, Momissa. Rissa, Krellin, 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 Bobellin, Banana, Fana, Fofelin, Fee, Fi, Momelin. Krellin, the melon felon. Atomica, 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 Botomica, Banana, Fana, Fofatomica, Fee, Fi, Momatomica. Atomica. Hey everybody, how are y'all doing? Hi. I'm so excited. Wait, it turns out that it's time that Krellin has stolen an epic amount of honeydew melons, which, that is surprising to me, but also amazing. Hi everybody, I see the dabs. Well, I think Krellin stole the melons, and then, because it was a felony, I think that he stole a lot of melons. Not like you have to steal more than a certain number of hundreds of dollars. Well, but, oh no, you didn't do a subatomica, you did bits. Oh, Atomica. Don't worry, I'll fix that. By the way, I feel like I'm not hearing music for you, Oliver, now. Why is that? I know it's very quiet. Okay, it's there. Yeah, it's just really quiet. So can you? Ooh, maybe carry them across international lines. Maybe that might be it. Well, they were federal melons. They were federal melons. So, what makes a melon a federal melon? Were they from federal lands? I committed grand theft name game. Nah, just stop an entire state's worth. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Because it was hanging out a little bit lower before. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Hey everyone. Maybe the felony wasn't stealing the melons, but instead an assault. Oh, what if Krellin assaulted people with melons, but not salted peanuts? Because that's different. Just a Melanie, if you will. Okay, how would I do this in GURPS? No, and I'm thinking about how I would do melon felonies in GURPS. Because Texas doesn't get any more melons. I stole them all. Krellin, I have a question. This is an important question. When you stole those melons from Texas, was it because of them messing you over with water? Because Krellin, as a Northern Californian who's had my water messed with by Southern California, I can appreciate your water-related frustration. Mm-hmm. Payback. Yes, Krellin, see, we're on the same space. Yeah, only watermelons. Right, they take your water, you take their watermelons. They're not getting any. They're not getting any at all. Speaking of which, there's this thing that I wanted to tell you all about, random. Oh, there are a couple things I wanted to tell you about. Okay, I'm gonna forget, so don't let me forget 1970s horror films. That's one I wanted to tell you about. And then the other one was, I don't think I need to adjust here. I think I need to adjust here. I think I've got this, hold on. I'm messing with sound in a way that I don't think I need to be. I mean, I'm messing with sound for you, but I think I need to be messing with sound for me, which is not the same as messing for, this is what I need to do. Yes. Okay, 70s horror films is the first thing I wanted to tell you about. Okay, wait, here's my list. 1, 70s horror films. I want to tell you about that. 2, don't let me forget at the end of the stream that I need to go and like balance my checkbook for the month, because I haven't done that yet. Like, I'm supposed to do it on the 15th. I try to do it on like the 1st and the 15th, and it's like 22nd. I haven't done it yet, so remind me. Balance my checkbook. But that's for like after the stream's over. Oh, hype! Hello! Oh, yeah. Bits. Don't even, like, I remember that. Don't let me forget about bits. No, hold on. So 70s horror films, there's one other thing. What was it? 70s horror films? There was something else that was probably exciting, and now I don't remember what it is. Let me see. Are we late because no one told you to go to? Oh, Rissa. Rissa. Okay, so Rissa, I feel like you are calling me out right now. I feel like you're calling me out right now, and I feel like that's super unfair because I went to bed very early, actually. I went to bed very early this morning, but you know, I just what I mean to say is, I mean, I went to bed. I went to bed, and I also woke up, and did I go to, like, when did I go to bed? That's a good question. Trooper was too busy boosting people's morale and erasing their acting-related traumas. Riss asked, was it after 1 a.m.? Yes, I did go to bed after 1 a.m. But if going to bed at 1 a.m. is like pretty early. Like that would be like, woo, 1 a.m. I'm gonna put it this way. I've seen a lot of really bad 70s horror movies, but for very stupid reasons. Atomica, what are those reasons? My reasons are that my mom really loves 70s horror movies, and so I've seen a lot of them. But this was based on a tweet from like 2 days ago, and I wanted to bring it up with you because I wanted to talk with you about it because I thought you'd be a great group to talk to you about. So don't let me forget 70s horror films. So I did go to bed at 7 in the morning. So this is just a note. I went to bed at 7 in the morning. Yeah, so that did happen. And then, you know, I woke up, supposed to wake up at 11, but I kind of woke up at like 11:30, so then I was like rushing around. Remember, folks, Trooper asked us to politely kick his ass if he kept doing that. I'm like, but tonight I'm not going to bed at 7 in the morning. Tonight I'm going to bed at a normal time, at a normal, reasonable time. That is just a true statement. Then I'm calling out chat because you asked to tell y'all to go to bed. Yeah, okay, yes. No, but I don't think I was in Discord. I don't think I was in Discord at 1 a.m. So why 7 a.m.? Okay, what happened was, so this is what happened. I went and I watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon last night with Lindy and Prax over screen sharing on Zoom, and because Lindy had never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so that was pretty awesome. Oh no! I'm gonna go to bed at a different time, and Cthulhu Confidential is gonna be right on time. Hey, Baron Tor. And I relate 6:30. And so Lindy had never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, so we showed it to her. We didn't get to see the dragon. It was crouching, you know. It was like super hidden. We couldn't find it. We couldn't find the tiger. It was terrible. Yeah, it's pretty fun. And so we watched it, but we were actually done with that film pretty early. Like it wasn't that late when we were finished. We were probably finished around like 1:30, 1:40. So like before 2 a.m. We were done with that film before 2 a.m. And then also we kept talking, including finding out that there's a website, Viki, I think it's called, where you can watch K-dramas, because there are a couple K-dramas that like we've been looking for. And so then we talked about K-dramas, and then we talked about Doctor Who, and then anyway, then was like an inappropriate time in the morning. But tonight I'm going to bed at a decent time. I'm just letting you all know, I'm putting it out in the universe, that tonight I'm going to go to bed before 2 a.m. That's my goal. My goal is that I'm going to go to bed before 2 a.m. tonight. That's it. Origami Shuriken, you know somebody who was in Crouching Tiger? Who do you know who was in it? Who do you know who was in it? There's another that genre that's newer that was popular too. I can't remember the name. Barantor, have you seen, if any of you like, the boxes are not unpacked. They're in the closet because I moved them. Here's the thing. I moved them for Cthulhu Confidential because I didn't want them being seen in Cthulhu Confidential. But then I realized that I used my other camera for Cthulhu Confidential, so you wouldn't have seen them anyway. So I didn't have to put them into the closet, those 3 boxes. So that was silly. But I also want to try my new camera because the C922 does not take light as well as this camera here, so it's always darker on that camera. But I've got this new camera which might take light better, so I want to see if I can set that up today. That's one of my goals. That's what I want to do. But I'm letting you know. I'm letting you know that they're still out there. Like I'm not trying to bamboozle you. I want you to know. You knew a guy used to do stunt work? Really? Oh, that's so cool. That's like the fight choreography was beautiful, right? I mean, and it's funny, right? Because I was thinking about because I was watching, we watched it last night, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and I was watching. I was just thinking about. Lindy's seen a lot of Jackie Chan, but not seen a lot of other stuff. So basically, this was we just did like a Michelle Yeoh trio over the last couple of weeks. So we watched. I showed her Wing Chun with Michelle Yeoh, and then I showed her Yes, Madam with Michelle Yeoh, and then Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Right, so 3 really different sorts of films with very different aesthetics. And Wing Chun, which is like I think from the 90s, has wire work, but the wire work doesn't look floaty. Right, there's like wire work, but it doesn't have that sort of. Anyway, there's wire work, but it doesn't look floaty. And then Yes, Madam, I don't think had any visible wire work at all. It was very like modern and gritty, punch in the face, blood. And then of course Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is just like so, like it's so. It's like they just like when they're like running and floating over the air, like they're running over the rooftops and like or across water, and it's just so like it's like a scarf, you know what I mean, blowing in the wind. It's just hey Ava, I would take that coffee, but I don't drink coffee. I feel bamboozled. Atomica says, when I was a little kid in the 80s, I think the horror movie that freaked me out the most was the one with the massive killer rabbits. Oh, that was from the 70s, I think. Night of the Lepus. Atomica. I'm sorry. I'm saying that because A, I'm gonna sing your bit song, but also like there are all these giant creature movies, right? Like there was Night of the Lepus, which was the giant rabbits, but there was also Food of the, like the 60s had a lot of giant, some of them might have been the 70s. Was that this, like, do you remember if Them was 60s or 70s? That was the giant ant movie that had Joan Collins in it. Like I suspect that was probably the 70s, but it could have been the late 60s. But there was the one that Food of the Gods, which was like giant animals in general, that radiation, I don't know, that chemicals, they become giant. I'm just saying. Origami Shuriken and I were in a horror movie together. You know that you'll never unpack them if you can't see them. I know, so I'm probably going to pull them back out so that they're invisible. Now that I know that they won't be seen on camera, I am going to pull them back out so that I will see them and know that I have to do them. No, I'm totally gonna pull those boxes back out. It's fine, Trooper. I think if you keep stuff in boxes, it's okay. You aren't gonna be living there too. No, I'm leaving at the end of the year, Barantor. So yeah. So but I wanna unpack them because I mean I don't have that many boxes left, to be honest. But I do want to. But the other problem is I feel like I need another set of shelves, like probably there or there, so that I can really actually unpack. But that's all. Wing Chun punches are so weird. Oh, House of Flying Daggers and Hero. Yeah. Origami Shuriken says that it was ethereal. It was very ethereal, yes. Like, completely different mechanics from almost every other punching style. That's true. Riss will drink my coffee, yes. Neither Lepus is great. Thank you, Courier. Thank you. Horror movies are scary. No, then maybe it's not them. What was it called? Ava, what was the, it's a movie with Joan Collins. It's in color, so it's not 54. It's about giant ants. And I remember I think that she was like, I don't know if she was like the tour guide or if she was a person, but there was like a boat on a river. They were taking a tour, and then like the giant ants attack them all. But the giant, like, and you know how ants have antenna? And so you have these antenna. The giant ant is not on screen for most of the time. Like, you'd see like the little, like, here's an ant that looks like a regular sized ant, but like in close up, that is clearly not in the same place as the rest of the actors. It's just like some stock footage of an ant maybe. And then you see the actors going, oh no. And then what looks like kind of like styrofoam pool noodles are kind of like batting at them from off camera. And they're like, oh no, ants. Anyway, I don't know if, like, what movie was that? It was an RPG, not an actual horror movie, but it totally counts. That counts, PH, yes. Krellin says, when I was a teen, my mother and I decided to watch a horror film because the TV guy said it was about a bunch of fire-breathing giant cockroaches, but we were very disappointed to find that they were just like normal, real-world giant cockroaches. Oh, that's disappointing. Oh, you got Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street, I actually think that Nightmare on Elm Street was one of the better slasher films, the first one. I thought that was a really good one. The railroad track scene in Night of the Lepus always made me cry as a kid. IKEA Billy. Wait. The giant, yeah. No, Empire of the Ants was a different one, right? Wait, because there were two ant movies. There was the one that had the giant ants, and then there was another one, which was the film that was playing when my sister was born, and that was called, I think, Phase 4, but those weren't giant ants, those were regular sized ants, but they just took over the world and killed everybody because people were bad for the environment, so the ants rose up and killed everybody except for one man and one woman who are going to be the new Adam and Eve to restart the population. It was, you know, horror movies are super interesting, everybody. Empire of the Ants is Joan Collins, because that's the one I was thinking of. Like in the real world, there are species of cockroaches that are called giant cockroaches, but they're like 6 inches long instead of 2. Okay, first off, Krellin, 6 inches long is inappropriate for a cockroach. Cockroaches don't need to be 6 inches long. I feel like they need to not be 6 inches long. That's how I feel about that. Origami Shuriken says, I had a dream once in which I was running from ninja, leaping across treetops on an island, very much in the style of Crouching Tiger. And in the dream, I realized that if I could do a particular treat by just enough to drop down onto the mainland, I would wake up. Oh. Ooh. I've thought about that. Ants in a Bug's Life. How kind of the ants? How kind of the ants? Yeah. Them as a 50s horror movie about atomic testing. Oh, so we have just a lot of giant ant movies. Clearly, 77. Thank you. Yeah, but not for the 12-year-old 7th grader. My mom didn't know it was horror. Ant-Man is a Marvel movie. I was always weirded out at the start of Phantasm. Yeah. If you could bid the tree. Okay, so maybe 6 inches long is too big for a cockroach, but don't call it giant unless it's bigger than your car. That's fair. I agree with that. I saw the original Blob when I was 6 and it freaked me out big time. Oh yeah. Oh. Okay. Real quick. So I just want to let you know. Hey, I'm Trooper SJP, and this is the Academic Foxhole. We are playing the Outer Worlds today. If there's anybody who's not been here before, we're playing the Outer Worlds today, and we're going to start at a time period. And I'm going to just sing our bit song because Atomica donated bits, and so I'm going to sing "We're in the Money" as sung by Ginger Rogers from the film Gold Diggers in 1933, which means I'm going to sing it in Pig Latin. But first, the reason why I'm doing this right now is because I really want to talk about horror films with you all, and I know I'll forget my introduction if I don't do this right now. But then we're going to come back to horror films because I see you. Right there. Here we go. Airway and hey, the anime. Airway and hey, the anime. Iwe akele away wakes to take young way. Airway and hey, the anime. Either ice skates or ani say. Oh man, did and pray. We are a three was still hungry. Iwe every bread lands lay, way brands lay, ute day. And we see the end, Lord will look left the eye guy right near the eye. Where in the money? Where in the money? We've got a lot of what it takes to get along. Oh, I'm so excited. Sorry, I really love singing that song. I really do. It makes me so happy. And like, when I sing Where in the Money in Pig Latin, there are these moments that I love more than anything. There are these like little moments when I feel so happy inside. Like I love when she says, okay, I love the line, we never read headlines about bread lines today. That line right there, we never read the headlines about bread lines today. Because like in Pig Latin, it's Ire evne idre edle einsle, eavle edbre einsle, ute day. And I love that for today, instead of just going udete, she goes uteede. She like breaks up the syllables right there, and it's just like this little rhythmic moment, like uteede, and it's like got this really cool syncopation, and it's so good. Like it's just so fun to sing that, and I feel so cool when I can sing uteede as opposed to just udete, because like it's this really creative little thing that she did. That like, what a cool little thing that she just broke up in this really cool way, and it gives this really neat little syncopation and rhythm, and it's like, it's just like one of my favorite parts of that song. I just love singing that word. It makes me so happy. It just makes me really happy. I just need you to know it. I mean, the tall man technically got his freak on as the blonde before he could, and that's true. And my head movie was even more slasher than the films are. He was like, I miss cheesy horror movies. You know, Ava, this is one of the things I want to talk about with cheesy horror movies. Giant ants is definitely a uniquely prevalent piece of American fiction. Do you really? Courier. Oh, hey, Courier. I have some questions for you. Actually, okay, wait. Time out. In our chat today, we have people who grew up in places other than the United States, which is very exciting for me. I love that. That makes me super happy. So now I'm going to ask people who grew up in places other than the United States where you have an indigenous film culture. Because like some countries don't make a lot of their own films because they, you know, whatever. So my question for you all is, in your lifetime, but also your knowledge of your own country's film history, what is your horror film tradition? What do you got? Like, I know England's got the Hammer film, so they've got their whole sort of monster tradition over there in England. Yeah, I want to know. Tell me, because, okay, here's why I'm asking. A friend of mine has a blog that I need to actually read some of the new posts on. Oh, I think he's doing some different things. It might be a different blog now. I have to think about this. But anyway, so you know when Us came out and also Get Out, and Jordan Peele was calling them social horror films? And his blog, he had a thing about, he's basically like, all horror is social horror. Like, he knows that Jordan Peele is calling it social horror. He's like, but really all horror films are social horror, because all horror films are reacting to something in the society. And so he was doing an analysis, I think, of The Quiet Place. Anyway, the point is, if we think about horror films as being about sort of working through some kind of larger societal anxieties or tensions or things going on. So I would be interested in knowing, what are the horror films from your countries, and what do you think it says about, you know, where your country's at in those moments? That's what I want to know. I never had someone I wanted to score with at being scared about horror films. That's fair. Baron Tor says, in the 80s when I was younger, I had a bad experience watching all those UFOs or real type unsolved mystery shows with the abductions. Oh yeah, I remember those. I lived out in the middle of nowhere, so I was scared to go outside at night for a long time. Baron Tor, I totally get that. I totally get that. All the trauma films were trippy, yeah. X-Files spooked the shit out of me as a kid. X-Files, you know what's really funny about the X-Files? Oh, the X-Files movie. Yeah. But the TV show can be really spooky sometimes too. I was tricked into watching The Exorcist. It turned out to be not so bad. The voice of the devil was done by Mercedes McCambridge, this actress, and she really she did this amazing work. All the giant creature movies are 50s and 60s reactions to worry about atomic war and how easy it was to overlay close-up creatures on top of regular people. Yes, Volpez. And again, it was, no, we've only just started. Yeah, there was a lot of atomic anxiety. Also, Godzilla was also clearly, and, you know, gaming was also clear about anxieties around atomic stuff. Always good at the never finish the monster. Yeah, finish off that monster. Finish it off. Dutch horror movies. Yeah, says PH. I remember seeing one based on Santa Claus. It was more funny horror kind of movie. Yeah, Krellin says, I love Jordan Peele's mastery of horror. so good, right? Like, who would have thought that the person that you knew from like Mad TV and Key and Peele would like pop out like this amazing horror? Because I was like, I'd really only known him as like a comedy person, but amazing. PH says, I do remember one movie where a character choked on a fishbone and the bone was visibly sticking out inside his neck, and it freaked me out a ton. Yeah, that would freak me out. Atomica says, we did get a lot of horror comedy in the 70s too. Private Parts, Attack the Killer Tomatoes, Young Frankenstein, Hell Hot Rocky Horror. Yeah. Ice Bunny says, horror, well, you should know Musikantenstadel with Günther Moich, or whatever the dude with the dockle was called. I don't think I know. Gervais says, I don't know enough about horror or Swedish horror to know what Swedish horror movies are. That would be interesting, Gervais. Like, I'd be really interested to know, like, what is Swedish horror? That would be interesting. Don't run up the damn stairs and the monster serial killer is chasing you. That's usually never a good space to go. Courier 3 says, the Irish film scene is fairly young and mostly revolved around history in Ireland up until the 70s, yeah. But then most of the movies I saw after that period were either dark comedy or darker tragedy. I haven't really seen any uniquely Irish horror movies that weren't meant to be read as comedy. That's really interesting. That's interesting, Courier. I would be... I want to think about that. Like, I really want to think about what because I think that what film industries do tell you a lot about where that country's at, you know what I mean? In different kinds of ways, so that's interesting. Wizard Style says, Germany doesn't do a lot of horror right now, though there were a ton of horror movies in the 20s, though. Some with an expressionist bent. Yeah, Wizard Styles, this is part of what I'm talking about, right? Like, if you think about horror in in the Weimar Republic had amazing horror, right? Often very expressionist. But you had, and there were serial killers, right? So there's like serial killers, so a lot of sort of things like that, like M. That was a big famous one. But then some, also like very trippy, like I'm thinking about Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or Mabuse. Like there's like a bunch of really interesting horror films in Germany in the 1920s and the early 30s that were very sort of intellectual, very internal. Like they were often about the internal state, like the internal internal self, like sort of like they were very psychological, right? They were very psychological. Very interesting. You know, England has a lot of horror films. England's a lot of really good horror films, like historically as well. Iceman says, I don't watch horror, so I'm not sure what there is. PH says, so while there are good amounts of Dutch horror movies, I haven't seen most of them, sadly, as it's not my favorite genre. Can you get a sense, PH, what the themes are of those horror films? In Denmark in the 70s, you had Olsenbanden. I don't know that one. Schmelzer says, the only thing I immediately think of for German horror are those really low-budget splatter movies that a friend of mine used to act in. Oh, interesting. Yes, but World War II and the aftermath pretty much killed the movie industry for years. Well, it's tricky, right? Because basically, I mean, well, okay, hold on. Volpez, let's rewind. Before World War II, Hitler was killing the music, the film industry, because all of the great artists were like, we gotta go. You know what I mean? Like they left, but there was like there was a lot of musicals during Hitler's time period, like large amounts of musicals, like big musicals were happening during the Third Reich. And then it was sort of kind of stuck for a while, wasn't doing well. But then you get that whole the German new wave of cinema was really big in the 60s with people like, into the 70s, like with Werner Herzog and what's his face, Fassbender, and then Margaret von Trotta. So like there's a bunch of well, but you know what though, the 60s was a good time for films in Europe in general. There's a lot of stuff coming out of film. Like there's a lot of really good art film happening right in that moment. It was more suspense and mystery, but with the Stepford Wives, yes. Stepford Wives is considered feminist horror. Great film, by the way. Yeah, 60s, 70s, yeah. The Das Theater was shown in Germany and Sweden. Oh. Another 30% gore through more high concept. Oh, interesting. Huh. Rissa says, 60s in the US also had a lot of Vincent Price and Poe adaptations. Oh, yes. Yeah. And the gimmicky movies like The Tingler, where the movie theater seats were rigged to vibrate. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I want to tell you. This is related to all of us, by the way. So somebody posted a tweet, and their tweet was like, salty. You know what I mean? It's like when he's like, I don't like this thing because it makes no sense, right? That thing. But I was like, well, hold on, right? And then I was like, then a really interesting conversation happened. So France started getting big in the 50s, as did England. Yes, Volpez. France had like the French New Wave cinema, and England had in the 50s, it was, what do they call it? It was called kitchen sink realism. There was like this whole move in England in the 1950s to do kind of like hyper realistic working class stuff. Oh man. And then of course you're gonna get like Fellini in Italy, like oh, film history, people, film history, so exciting. I'm getting so many good horror movies in my head, but they're 80s, so this doesn't fit the topic. Okay, so this person made a tweet, so I want to tell you about the tweet before we even play the Outer Worlds, because this is really good. So this person was like making this tweet, and they were like, oh, it was a funny tweet. It was a tweet that I was like, I'm learning a lot about you because of this tweet, is what the tweet was. And it was, is anybody else really bothered by cleric's ability to turn undead in Dungeons and Dragons? Because it doesn't make any sense mechanically why they would be able to do that. Like, what is the mechanical purpose? Basically they didn't think, they're like, oh, their play was like, it just doesn't work because either it doesn't work and it's pointless, or it does work and all the monsters run away and it's an instant win button. So basically the argument was, from a gamist point of view, was that they didn't think that turn undead from a gamist point of view they didn't use the word gamist, but I was like, oh, that's clearly what this argument is. They didn't think it worked, right? They're like, this is a pointless thing. They think it was dumb. And so like, and somebody was like, oh, but you know, vampires, right? I mean, you know, and then this person was like, well, I don't actually understand why this ability to turn undead would even be a thing, because really the only thing that you would have historically that would be turned from like by holy symbols sort of would be vampires. That's only one thing. And so like, where is this coming from, right? Was this like, hey, Scabbynack, like, where is this turn undead coming from? Because it makes no sense. Yeah, the original Surprise was in the 70s. There was one film in German TV that scared the shit out of me for months when I was a kid. We had to watch TV in the basement. Oh, yeah, I think so. Right around there, as was the book. Yeah, it was like it was the early 70s. I guess from a gamer's point of view, they have a point, and we don't talk about the remake. But of course, I mean, I would say if we're gonna go gamist for a moment, I actually think they don't have a point from the like. Now, my entree into this conversation was not about gamism, which we'll get to. It was about 70s horror films. But I think that from a gamer's point of view, it's actually not a problem, because there are a lot of abilities in Dungeons and Dragons that have on-off switches. So for example, especially before 5e, rogues, like thieves, their sneak attack damage was on or off all the time. Like if you were a halfling rogue and you did 1d3 points of damage with your dagger, and you couldn't flank, you weren't getting sneak attack damage, and you were doing almost nothing. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, well, so sad for me. So like, sneak attack damage turns on and off. Turn undead turns on and off. What else? If you don't have your components, you're doing components, your spells might be problematic. Rage can turn on. Like, there are a bunch of abilities, because I think that becomes part of the... Kern's like, I'll talk about clerics about 5 minutes, busy. Oh, good. I'm here. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So I imagine, like, because I think that from that gamist point of view, that's part of like in a really gamist sense, having things that'll turn off your powers becomes part of the puzzle that the players have to solve. Like, how do I get around these things? I think that becomes like part of one of the things that they're doing there. And so like, from a gamist point of view, like, that's not how I think, but I can see what it's doing there, you know, you're like, it's fine. Trying to look into Swedish horror movies, but given the limited amount of movies from Sweden, it's hard. I can't really just look at what is made, but also what is enjoyed and imported. Yeah, And I'm too out of touch with Swedish culture, especially when it comes to horror, to really get a sense of with that without doing a proper dig into it. You know, Jafai, I was thinking about what's his face, Bergman, right? I mean, like the big Swedish director Bergman. He did some horror stuff, right? That was maybe some of it was maybe a little bit weird and uncanny, right? Ingmar Bergman. Like he did some stuff, but that's like, again, I think 60s or 70s. Lore-wise, says PH, you're repulsing negative energy with positive energy, right? Today's topic is horror movies of the 50s to 80s, and first distraction is clerics turning undead. But Vulpus, this is not a distraction. This is why we're talking about horror movies in the first place. So here's why. So here's the thing. So they were like, somebody who doesn't get it. And somebody's like, oh, but vampires. And then the original poster was like, yeah, but there's only one monster. Nothing else does it. And I don't know where this would come from. Like, I don't know why this was happening. And I had an answer that I wanted to share with you all because I thought you might think this is interesting. So I mean, how is Failure to Turn Undead any different than Failure to Charm Spell? Yeah. So a lot of darker magical realism for Bergman. Yeah. And some of that stuff was like really kind of scary, but like in this kind of weird, like very like Bergman was very cool. Okay, so here's what I was thinking. I was thinking about like, so I was thinking, okay, well, why did we get to, why might Turn Undead have been in Dungeons and Dragons in the original version, right? I was trying to think about it. And then I realized this thing. Iceman says it was Edgar Wallace, the man with the frosch mask. Edgar, the man with the fish face. That was a detective film of the 60s or 50s, black and white, and the murderer had a mask on and was hiding in dark corners. I had to walk upstairs to the dark hallway into my room. My brain was so scared. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you, Lopez. Okay, so here's what I was thinking. I was trying to think about like why might there have been Turn Undead? Why was this happening? And because if only vampires, whatever. I assume it's in there because Holy Might was one of Gary's players' things. Oh, that probably works. But I'm also thinking, but I was like, wait, The Exorcist, that was from that time period. And then I realized when I was thinking about it that actually the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s, the time period where Dungeons and Dragons was created, had a lot of religious horror films. There was The Exorcist, The Omen, Satan's School for Girls. There were a lot of films that were coming out at the end of the 60s, so basically when the Hays Code is sort of rescinded into the 60s, early in the 70s. They're dealing with things like hallowed ground, unhallowed ground, the power of faith protecting people. There was a film called Equinox, which is this low budget sort of midnight film that was, I remember it from being a kid, where this film starts off with this guy, teenager, young person running down the freeway, like just sort of mad, holding a cross, and he's all freaked out and weird, and like the ambulance comes to pick him up and they want to take the cross out of, it's like a homemade cross. They want to take it out of his hand. He's like, no, don't take my cross, they'll kill me. And as this guy's being taken away at the beginning of the film, this carload of teenagers is going the opposite direction, and they go to like a national park to have fun and hang out, and then it all turns really, really bad, and at the end the one last teenager is running out with the cross. Anyway, the point is that I was just actually remarking how the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s had a lot of religious themed horror, like evil witches, unhallowed ground, cultists, Satanists, all this kind of stuff where in the power of faith becomes really important. And so I was just thinking that this idea of the power of faith being a much larger thing to battle evil was kind of in the zeitgeist and in the air quite at that moment when D&D was being made. So it makes sense to me that it would be in there, that's all. The power of Christ compels you, yes. Yes, thank you, Vulpes. And Vatican II was 1965. And so Catholics from the news a lot. Yes, that's right. So I think there was a lot going on. There was a lot in there. Atomica says, wasn't the whole thing about the silver herding werewolves that was a naturally holy metal? Yeah. So for me, it makes sense that early D&D would have that, not only because one of the players was into that, but also because it was really part of that zeitgeist at the time. And as I was thinking about horror in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, there was a lot of that, right? There was that whole like Rosemary's Baby. There was like this whole crop of these sort of religiously or that kind of like good evil sort of horror films from that time period, which was interesting, right? I thought it was the moon connection. Silver was the moon, maybe. Oh, both. Yes, and Courier says, in Ireland, crosses had always been, since Christianization, to protect bedrooms or circumcision. Yes, that too. So I feel like there's like a larger tradition. So like, I think it makes, I was like, no, from a lore, I get it. And then of course, in later editions of D&D, they just made it, the connection stronger, but negative energy, positive energy, that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, makes sense to me. So that said, thinking about horror, I was thinking about the different types of horror that there are, and the different types of horror and what that says about sort of various moments. And of course, you think about the slasher films, like from the late 70s through the 80s, which is often about like anxiety around teenage sex, mostly because it's like the teenager who has sex dies. That happens all the time. But that's also like, but that's the one lone person, which is very different from like chemicals getting in the water and turning everybody into giant whatnots. Like, and then zombies become a whole thing. I mean, 68, Night of the Living Dead, 1968, 69, right? That was like a big zombie film, but we didn't really get into zombies. Like, we were in a zombie moment. Here we go. Hey, there we go. I don't know why. Are we out of the zombie moment, by the way? Are we out? Are we out of it? I found a sweet shop in Berlin that has candy from all the worlds. Oh, that's cool, Ice Bunny. Silver has been related to purity. Purity is why vampires don't cast reflections, because early mirrors were made with silver, which wouldn't reflect their unholy forms. Mm-hmm. Think about all the mini bags that still need to be unpacked. The true horror! Yes. Thank you, Volpez. Courier3 says, it's obvious where they pulled it from. I just think Turn Undead is boring mechanically. Courier, here's another thing about clerics I think we have to sort of ponder with this Turn Undead situation. Javias, isn't the silver thing kind of modern though, like the 40s? No, I actually think it's much earlier because you didn't have because you didn't have glass. You know what I mean? Like I think that silver was like you'd have like silver plates and whatnot. A lot of mirrors weren't really good. Oh, Riss is like, I don't doubt it. Too many parallels to pandemic. Yeah, because we've had like from like would you say that the aughts or the teens, like the teens was like a decade of the 90s was a decade of vampires, which I think also had to do with the AIDS crisis. There's a lot of interest in vampires in the 90s. We got a lot of zombies in the teens, it looks like. Teens, maybe aughts too, maybe. Yes. I don't want to turn a giant whatnot. Scabbynack, who does? Yeah. Krone says, but here's clerics from every perspective. Gamist, undead are immune to a lot of special abilities and powers of other classes. In early editions, turning undead was one of the few weapons in the player's arsenal against undead at all. Yes, also, Krellin, to add on to that, first edition clerics were kind of underpowered in certain ways. Like they could heal, but a lot of people found that kind of boring. They weren't as good. They were kind of a weird niche. Like they've beefed up clerics a lot since first edition, but they were kind of weak in certain ways. So that was one of the things they could do. It was like, simulationist. PH hit on this. Clerics, again, earlier editions, channeled positive energy, repelling the negative energy that animates undead. And when the cleric is powerful enough and channels a lot of positive energy, it can be enough to overwhelm and destroy, not just repel. Narrativist, this relates a bit to the simulationist answer, but clerics are people of strong faith, the holy, and narratively it makes sense to set them in opposition to the unholy. Yeah, earlier editions didn't really explore PCs being associated with evil or less good gods. That's actually true too, and I think that was also because of the weird environment of 1970s, because we're getting that kind of the satanic panic hits really big in the 80s, but the 70s starts having like a lot of anti-cult kind of stuff happening. Atomica says to Courier, I think it depends on the campaign. If the party just occasionally run into undead, it can be a little OP mechanically. But if it's an undead campaign, it becomes a much more important resource. Paper, scissors, rock. So I'm thinking about the role of the undead. So thieves can get massive sneak attack damage, but they can't get against undead. So people often throw in undead to sort of frustrate the thief. But then you need something to sort of counter the undead, so then you get the cleric. So the cleric comes in, right? So there's a kind of like and then the magic user, high-level magic user just kills everybody, and then you're fine. Yes. Board game-wise, yes, zombies are on the way out. With current society, Lovecraftian horrors are rising. That's really, Vulpes, that's a really interesting point. And it's true, we're getting more sort of cosmic horror. That's very interesting. That's very interesting, Vulpes. Yeah. Oh, I meant the whole silver bullet hurting werewolves. Well, we've had bullets. We've had shot for a long time. I mean, we have guns in the 1300s. Like, when is the arc? Basically, you could legit have guns in your D&D campaign, no problem, because they're actually historically accurate. Although, yeah, I mean, you know. Yeah, now I want the pack of zombies that are being turned to pull out holy symbols of their own. PH, that would be amazing. Risk is like a lot of vampires in the 90s, yeah. Near Dark, Lost Boys, The Hunger, Fright Night, also Anne Rice novels. Like, they were just sort of like, right? Like, they're, yeah. Also, The Hunger's amazing. Where does Alien fit into all this? Alien seems to be, so that's like what, Alien is like what, 78 maybe? Is that right, about then? So 80? 78, 79, 80? Well, what's interesting, so here's the thing I think what about Alien, where does it fit into all this? When I think about so there's a lot going on in Alien, but when I think about like one of the big themes is the corporations, right? This real sort of anxiety about corporations not doing what's in your best interest, which feels very 80s to me. Crit Twitch says, since I didn't go out all morning, I've got to go now. Oh, okay, go. I had to get things done. You made poor choices. No, it's fair. I will see you later, Crit Twitch. I begin to look if Berlin has the infrastructure. I wasn't, and what part of Berlin is not a family borough after 16 years in a family neighborhood. I would not mind a bit less football in front of my window. So you want, oh, you don't want, okay, Alien came out too late. It didn't make an impact to the 80s. Yeah, I think Alien had to do, like, I think there's a bunch of stuff because Alien is happening at the time. So I think there's a couple things going with Alien. One, it's in some ways a response to like the kind of utopian Alien films like Close Encounters or those kind of things. But I think it's also about corporations. Yeah. If I recall correctly, vampires not having reflection was a thing from Bram Stoker, so still semi-modern, yeah. Krellin, Rose can sneak attack undead? Krellin, really? Why did I not know that? Well, I'm glad I know. Thank you for telling me, because I have to make a rogue. Oh, I'm going to be in a, yeah, I'm doing an off-stream one-shot. I'm going to tell you about it. I'll tell you about it. I'll get there. Don't let me forget. I want to tell you about the off-stream one-shot I'm doing on Monday. But I'm going to play a rogue, which I haven't played in a long time. So 90s vampires are a big reaction to the AIDS crisis. Yep. Blood is bad. Yep. Zombies are more about the faceless masses and the lower classes rising up. Witcher's a silver sword. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then also we're coming back with the World of Darkness, which is really interesting. But, you know, Courier, I think about this a lot. I think about the revival of the World of Darkness, and I wonder how... Courier. I played the heck out of some World of Darkness back in the 90s, right? And for me, the World of Darkness was super 1990s. Like, it was so 1990s. It had so much to do with the 1990s in so many ways. Thematically, but also it's very much, when I think about World of Darkness, specifically Vampire the Masquerade, I think about, like, third wave 1990s feminism, goth culture, like it was like it's so 90s to me, including some aesthetic things that people now are a little bit more like. I will say, in my opinion, people now are a bit more puritanical than they were in the 90s. There's just like a very different attitude towards sexuality now than there was then. We were in the middle of the sex wars in the 90s, where people were like, let's have sex in dark rooms. BDSM is cool. Like it was like a very different sort of sexual space than it is now. And the sexual space now is very incompatible with the sexual space that it was in the 90s. And I was like, how are they going to reboot Vampire? Like, how are they going to actually do that game in 2020? How is that supposed to work? How is that going to work when the aesthetics and the issues and the values are so different? I just feel like it's not going to work well. And then, of course, it starts coming out and people started being really upset about things that I expected. I was like, you know, they're like, this game has dominate. It has like powers to control minds, and that doesn't respect consent. This game is a problem. I was like, well, but that's part of the point, was that it's a horror, right? So, but like, I saw that like, I did see that like some of the things I anticipated being things that people today would have problems with, people did today have problems with, often in the ways I expected them to have problems with it, in that they think, it's like I think today there's a bit of a problem with people thinking that depiction equals endorsement. So that like, if you show a thing, you think it's a good thing, when that kind of is a little bit where we are now. Like, oh, this thing has racism in it, then that means it must think racism is okay. And I was like, no, that's not what I mean. Right. But so I figured like, oh, how's this gonna work out? But then after like the big hullabaloo happens, people get all upset for a while, all that seems to have died down, and people are playing it. So I'm kind of wondering, what does it mean for people today who are not playing it as nostalgia? Like, if I play Vampire, it's still pinging for me. Like, I'm still remembering the 1990s, and a lot of people I know are still thinking about like the earlier Vampire. But I wonder, for people who've never played Vampire, what does Vampire do for them? How does it speak to them? What is it doing for them, right? What is that as a horror game doing for them in this moment? This is my question about it. That's a thing I want to ask. It's interesting to me. The first Alien movie is a haunted house set in space. Yes, it is, and it's a very, very well done. That was Volpez. Atomica says, I'm almost always armed my norm forces with flintlocks. 79, thank you. It was like right around there. Aliens is different, but the alien isn't the antagonist. Weyland Yutani is. Yes, definitely, totally. I mean, like, the alien is there causing problems with all of the murder, but the problem is Weyland Yutani. Like, that's the problem. And like the working conditions of the working people, right? Like, in many ways, like, you can look at because like what Alien is 79, which is like the middle of deindustrialization in the U.S. and a lot of sort of like anti-labor backlash is happening. So you get these working people who are basically screwed over by the corporation, who's like too corporate and like clean. Like, there's a real labor class politics in Alien, which is very cool. Krellin says 5e sneak attack applies only once a turn, no matter how many attacks you get, and applies anytime you have advantage or flanking. Huh. Oh. Only once a turn. That's new. Which means that build I had in 3.5 is not going to work anymore. Which was about having a ring of improved blinking, and then you can always get sneak attack damage, unless the GM doesn't let you because of reasons. Wow, that you can look beyond how gross the alien birth was. I'm also someone who tends to fall asleep watching films. It's fair. PH is a rogue with a feather in their cap, but they're a bird person, so it's with their own feathers, and they have to keep replacing it as adventure goes. Riss is like, oh yeah, Alien and Aliens are two different types of film entirely, both good in their element, yeah. Krellin says, I also know that Turn Undead is way less instant win in 5e than it was in earlier editions. Oh, that's interesting. Volpa says, if you get a chance, read George Romero's book about making the Living Dead movies. Such a good read. Oh, yeah, Volpa, I love, not the original I Living Dead, brilliant. And then the next one, like, George Romero's smart. You know what I mean? George Romero's very, very smart, and that stuff was very good. Ice Bunny says, the 90s are back. That bandanas are back. But the question is, if they're back, what are they doing when they're back, right? There's a difference between, like, nostalgia for a thing is different than the thing itself. Like, a thing that was progressive at one time can come back and be regressive, or come back and be something totally different. And I think we often sort of misunderstand, like, a thing means different things. A thing that is new means a different thing when you bring it back when it's old, right? It means a different thing culturally and socially. Like, in the 50s, rock and roll was very rebellious and dangerous and scary for people. It's like, oh my gosh. But in the 1970s, when we started getting all these 50s throwback films, it was no longer rebellious and scary. It was now kind of regressive, right? So like thinking about what does it mean, but it also can come back and be progressive in a different way, right? In 5e, you can destroy weak undead, but like so weak you shouldn't be fighting them. Oh. And an turned undead is just basically frightened, except most undead are immune to being frightened, so they need a new condition. Peach is, yes, you could have played anything and you chose to play someone who mind controls, you monster, right? It's like, but you can murder people. Wizard Style says, I know how problematic this is, but complaining about consent in vampire media really misses the entire point of vampires. Wizard, I'm going to agree with you there, because that's actually part of what is the point, right? That part of the point of vampires is that it's like, vampires are about sexuality in complicated ways. They're about a bunch of different things, but like we can just say sexuality broadly, and what that means for sexuality might be syphilis, right? You know, sexually transmitted diseases in the 19th century, the AIDS crisis, issues of consent, issues of being a sexual outsider. Like there are a lot of things that vampires do, but there's a lot going in there, and like you know, pondering it. Krellin says, everyone knows Jordan Peele's a huge fan of rich white people stealing black people's bodies so they can live forever. Totally, he thinks it's great. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. Javai says, World of Darkness is almost always having you be the bad guys, or at least have bad guy powers trying not to fall. Yeah, like a lot of the World of Darkness is about this kind of real internal struggle with like darker impulses and how do you deal with that and what do you do with it, and like that's kind of part of the point. Gives freedom from PC in real life. No, I don't think it is about freedom from PC, Ice Bunny, because it's about grappling with it. It's not like, oh, I'm not going to be, I mean, you could play it that way, but the mechanics of Vampire itself, the mechanics are not, hey, do whatever you want, be free from PC. The mechanics, original Vampire, like not when we start getting, let's say, Sabad, but it's about like, you as a vampire must drink blood to live, but that is in contrast with your humanity. And you have this humanity rating, and if you lose it, you lose your character. Like if you decide to go murder hobo in like 2E, and just murder and kill and do all the bad guy stuff, and like, I'm not gonna be pieces around murder, like you're gonna lose your character. Your character's gonna become a beast, and you're gonna lose your character. So you can't just do that. So there's like a really interesting tension about how to be, right? And like it's like this existential crisis. Like Vampire's an existential crisis game, right? And it's like dealing with that as a sort of a problem. Courier says, I run it kind of like UK punk mixed with high society organized crime. Really contrast the themes of class in the game. Yeah. And actually, I thank you for mentioning punk, Courier, because I think punk is actually very much part of World of Darkness as well, which is still coming out of the 80s. Like there's a real punk aesthetic, where also you're getting like cyberpunk and all that, right? So there's this punk aesthetic which deals with class, hierarchy, structure, rebelling against structure. Like there's a lot in there. iShield says, new random question. I took a class in the history of Germany, but my teacher at the time talked about the divisions that were there around East and West Germany. I'm wondering if you noticed anything like that there. When I lived in Germany, so yes. But iShield, you have to know when I lived in Germany so that you can contextualize what I'm going to say. I went to Germany in 1992. The fall of the Berlin Wall was 89, so I was in Germany at the time of Also, clearly, I'm having a. Give me a second. I have a thought here. You know what I think I need to do? I think I need to go here. I think that will improve what's going on here. Give me a second. I'm having some hiccups with my PS Play. And so I think I need to switch. There we go. I think that'll make that better. So I was there during the reunification process. And it was really like, there were a lot of tensions. There were a lot of very serious tensions between East and West as the reunification process was happening in ways that are much deeper than I think a lot of people think about. I mean, they were like, oh gosh, y'all, when I lived in Germany, like 92 to 97, it was very intense. It was a very intense time for reasons that were very understandable. And I'll get back into that for a second. Wizard says, I think Alien also came out during a time when public health problems caused by corporations were getting attention for maybe the first time, toxic waste scandals, etc. Yes, I think that's also true. Yeah. Vulpus, just watch Dark Star. It's the low-budget comedy that Dan O'Bannon wrote and got made before Alien. It gets all the corporate issues even more to the forefront. You will appreciate Alien more. Ooh, that sounds great. Backstreet has been back for a while now. Backstreet's back. All right. You know, Backstreet, by the way, I lived in Germany from 92 to 97, and the Backstreet Boys were broke in Germany before they were broke in the United States because the record companies were not quite certain that Americans would actually like boy bands, etc., but they knew that Europeans would, so they broke them in Europe and they brought them to the States. So I heard the Backstreet Boys before most of the US people did, just note. That's all. I don't care if they ever come back into style again. I'm never wearing my Trip Club pants ever. Atomica, where's your raver sense of style? The bandana is back as in What's Your Face Hadid. Gigi Hadid is wearing one and a magazine picked it up. I do them out of nostalgia. It helps makes the bad hair day look good. You know, for some people, bandanas never went out of style. Jordan Peele is really Orson Welles' new body, says Welpus. That's probably true. Curious says, I also get serious consent while intoxicated questions in it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The game is meant to bring up these questions and build a game around it. Yes. Consent while intoxicated. Controlling, like, there's a lot, right? Do you become a monster, right? It's like there's a lot. It's about not battling the monster, like, oh, there's a monster over there, I'm gonna battle it, but like, I am now the monster. It's very angsty, right? It's about that kind of being. It's about being an outsider, right? It's not about being the courier. I'm thinking about, and this is like this I think is actually really important for what Vampire was. Really important, I think, for Vampire in some ways. And I can't really speak about Werewolf and Mage. I think Krellin could. Some other people could a little bit better. And that is that very often before this, the hero is the normal person, and the vampire's the monster. Hunger's different. Hunger's actually hunger well, actually, hunger is part of this move, right? This sort of move, wherein the good heroes kill the monsters, and the monsters are always outsiders, and the good hero is always the normative person, and they kill the outsider monster. And Vampire and those films around it were like, well, wait a minute, we are the outsiders, right? It is one of the reasons why I really was drawn to all that stuff, was that I was the outsider. I was bullied by the normal people. The normal people bullied me. So like, if this were a film, I'd be the monster. And of course, remember, when I was growing up, people called me ugly all the time, right? Like, so I was the ugly monster because I was different, right? Because I was different, right? I was like trans, queer, all these, of color, all these things. And not all these things were very clear in my mind at that time. I didn't understand why people were attacking me with like their pitchforks and the torches and all of that. But like, the horror film setup is like the good, normal person who attacks the outsider. And in that moment in the 80s and 90s, we start getting things like Vampire, where actually, no, the outsider is the protagonist. And what you're really dealing with is, what does it mean to be an outsider and to have to, you know, hide who you are? You have the masquerade or the closet. The normal people are out to get you, and you have to somehow try to survive. So there's like a way in which this big flip that happens, I think, is really about a space for people who are outsiders to really start having a space to be the center. And so I think a lot of that monster flipping is about moments where people who are not the preps, right? The preps, the jocks, those people get to have some kind of, it's about making them human, right? It's about finding the humanity in the people that are always sort of sent to the outside and seen as disposable and people to be murdered. And so I think that, and there's a reason why a lot of marginalized people historically have often really liked the monsters, the bad guys in films, often because they're often queer coded as well, or racially coded, or sometimes in terms of ability or disability. Like, the monsters in these films historically have often sort of stood in for disability, for sexual difference, gender difference, racial difference, sometimes class difference. And if your position is that of the normal person, then it's cool to want to just murder all those monsters. But if you're one of the people that is one of those marginalized identities, all of a sudden, everyone being really excited to murder those monsters might make you feel uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't care. I love Darth Vader. Like, Darth Vader's gonna be, oh, you know, or the aliens in V, or I love the vampire, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, or whatever. Like, all of a sudden your relationship changes. And I think that sort of the centering the outsider, I think, is really central to Vampire the Masquerade when it first came out. And I think it was really what was very powerful and important about it. It was centering the outsider. And that centering of the outsider, includes women, because all of a sudden they're using female pronouns in that book. It talked about sexuality explicitly. Like, it was doing all sorts of really different things to center the outsider, not just in society, but also in the gaming hobby, the gaming scene. And like, I think it was really important. And then it becomes difficult because people now look back at it, but they don't understand the context. They're like, vampire's bad because you've got dominate. And I was like, but it's okay to stab people with the claws. I still, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that there's like, yeah, so I think that, and I wonder if people are going to, like, I just wonder what people are doing with it. That's all. Speaking of vampires, I'm enjoying Stitch of Fate, the new audio podcast. Oh, Rissa, I've not listened to it yet, but it's on my list of things to listen to, and I'm very excited to start listening to it. It's a thing that I'm very excited about. Yeah, Vampire, a lot of WD, World of Darkness overall, is about balance. How do you live as a monster while staying human? Yes. PH says, I need there to be an RPG show called Cyberpunked. Yes. The 70s were a tough time in Ireland too. Yes, Courier. Oh my gosh. And the 80s. The 70s and the 80s were terrible in Ireland. Like, you had the Troubles. It was like, and also economically, Ireland was like still trying to sort of make its way out of sort of a long history of British colonial oppression. Like, oh yeah. I think I was too young to get it in the 90s. Well, yeah, you have been a little bit older maybe. Curlin says, I think you can learn a lot about the concerns of a time by the horror that comes out. Yeah. PH says, there's a great German movie about a mother who's unaware that Germany is reunified. Her son lies to her because of her health. It's a great story. It's PH, I know that film. What's it called? Oh gosh. I know which one. Goodbye Lenin. Thank you, PH. It was a great film. Rissa says, we're about an hour from when stream started. Do you intend to run past 3 p.m.? Also, do you anticipate actually playing Outer Worlds today? Adjust mod chat. We're about an hour in, so we're going to transition to Outer Worlds really soon. And I'm going to run a little bit late because I started a little bit late, so I'm thinking maybe like, 3:30-ish. You're just gonna pretend to move like 10 to 20 feet. No, I'm totally gonna be moving for real though, for real. Video game playing does occasionally happen, or it did when he was playing Horizon Zero Dawn. If he's never going to play the game, no, I'm totally. 15 minutes till game start on screen. Total of 10 minutes of screen time plays. No, I'm totally there, right? Hey, Super Rave Monster. We're playing The Outer Worlds is the game we're playing, and we are going to. We have to like convince some people some stuff, so we have to walk a little bit. But I think my inventory is decent. Mage isn't particularly about being the monster. It was originally framed as being the special defender of magic and wonder in a world where every system is built to oppress, including through paradox reality itself. Which then does still make you about being the outsider in a certain way, Krellin. Yes. If he actually plays, I won't get to tease him for playing my... No, I'm going to... We're Atomic, I'm playing your game. That's the next one I'm playing on the PS4. I'm telling you. Krellin says, werewolf has moments of being the monster. Werewolves struggle with rage and it causes them issues. Werewolves cannot mate amongst themselves, so they have to mingle with people to ensure they're still werewolves. That rage makes them different and can drive away or even destroy those closest to them. Oh, that's very interesting. But the rage is also justified, and their strongest weapon against the forces seeking to destroy the world, in this case, literally destroy. Super Rave Monster says, I'd vaguely heard that aliens in Alien were described as a mix of masculine and feminine traits in their physical design. If that's true, it explains so much why I love their aesthetic. Oh, yeah. If we start talking about the queerness of horror and VTM, we'll never play video games. Hey, we can maybe do both, because it's super in there, right? Goodbye, Lennon. Trailer and Discord. Oh, thank you for putting the trailer in Discord, PH. It's a great film. I hope Trooper doesn't try to engage with me since I'm on the phone talking with Housing right now. We get the front page. We're there. We have now seen the game at least more of the game than at least 2 Saturdays. This is true, because yes. So Scabanek, I've not seen Lovecraft Country yet. Scabinek's asked if we have. That's on HBO, and I don't have HBO. But I really want to watch it, and I heard it was really good. I heard the first episode was so good, and I want to watch it so bad. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do about that. I know it's next. That's why I said December. That's fair. It made you feel like a superhero in a world where the big bad evil guy won, and you try to resist, you'll get and if you try to resist, you'll get. Oh, that's interesting. Gonna toss out some 80s horror. Anyone else love Monster Squad? You've got all this power, but you're still powerless. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. Vulpus says they were designed that way, sadly, more just because of H.R. Geiger's own perversions. Hey, you know what? People can use that perversion for their own stuff. We are trying to go this way, I think. First episode of Lovecraft Country was on YouTube for free. Oh, then I should look at that. Scabanek may or may not have. You know, Scabanek, there was a place where I could go to watch things, and then that place sort of imploded in a way with like malware, not malware. Malware is like scrunchies and t-shirts with puffy lettering. Northeast, south. I think we have to pick up these things.
Come on to my house.
Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, come on. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you candy. Come on to my house, I'm gonna give you everything. Hey, Kira, welcome in. Thank you for the host. We're talking about horror films, and also then by extension Vampire the Masquerade, and how horror films talk about what's happening societally, like what's going on in society, and how they reflect or comment on social anxieties, what we're talking about right now, and the things that Vampire was doing as a system. Also, apparently there were some people around, and I don't know if we missed them. I'm doing really well. I was up way too late last night, but I'm still doing really well. Hello. Yes, yeah. What are yoga rolls good for? Do you mean are these our friends? Can we just not shoot them? Looks like it. Nope, nope, these are not friends. Sorry, I thought they might have been friends, but they're not friends. I just was like, oh, friends. And the answer is no, not friends. Oh, wrong button. That was awesome. I need a different button. Nope, sorry, wrong button. Bad. Hey, not what I need. Not what I needed, everybody. Badness. All sorts of badness going on. It's fine. Horror films, those are not my area of expertise. Scrunchy, high side pony, baggy sweater leggings, leggings. Yeah, yeah. We know what's up. I've yet to watch Lovecraft Country yet. The book was good, but I'm interested in seeing people's views on it. Oh yeah. Being that the writer is not black. Oh, that'd be really interesting. But I'm also interested to see how things get sort of translated or not. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that, actually. Translation. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Like, made you to character build to be a shapeshifter, but doing so and being discovered would cause you physical harm, make the world's primary antagonist, the technocracy, lore and origin mages primarily, harass you, best case scenario. Guess how that reads to trans teenagers in highly queerphobic Ireland? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so again, you are still, right, working outsider status. Speaking of that, I'd started wondering lately about Five Nights at Freddy's reflecting anxieties people working horrid part-time job nowadays. Yeah, Super Rave Monster, I totally buy that analysis. I think that's a good one. I like that. There are rolls with spikes, maybe not for me. Oh, you can get rolls with spikes, rolls without spikes. I think people use it to loosen up muscles that are really tight. Stretch, also for like stretching your back. We call them foam rollers. We don't call them yoga rolls. We call them foam rollers. And I believe they are, I think they're people, I think you can use them to get kinds of stretches that you often can't get otherwise. Yes. What do we got? I missed a thing. I enjoy how different World of Darkness games kind of work the same, the whole outsider thing, but still manage to make all of them have quite different themes, like Rage and Werewolf, Hunger and Vampire. Changeling had mundanity, right? It was like the mundane. What did they call it? Was it the? Well, and clearly Changeling is also clearly about outsiderness, like for real, like in a super heavy way. Come on, Changeling. Banality. Even Mage is an outsider that has to be balanced, just in a less dark way, yeah. This is what happens when you walk to a firefight after weeks of not playing the game. Yeah, that's the one. I just found the button. I figured out what the button was. We're good. If my hair gets longer, I must get some scrunchies. Glamour, yeah. Speaking of the upcoming games, I think I want to replay Night in the Woods next month. Ooh, yeah. His first book, Fool of the Hill, is one of my favorite books. It's about New England Liberal College and Greek gods. Ooh, that sounds fun. Also, what are all these monsters doing here? Because I didn't kill them. Do you have advice for when you want to support multiple streamers at the same time? I realize there's a few days where streamers seem to stream at the same time. Yeah, oh, okay, so what I do with that, because I get conflicts that way sometimes. Also, I don't know where we're walking, but we're walking this way. We're walking. We're just gonna, yeah, so we're walking, and that's cool. That's it. I do a mix of things, Kira. What I will do is, it depends, like some things I will watch on VOD, when I have the time. So some things I'll watch on VOD, and then I'm gonna just kill this Mantiqueen. This Mantiqueen's gonna try to kill me. I probably should have reloaded. So that's a thing. Yeah, that's probably a thing. Let's have you use your powers. So sometimes I'll VOD. Tends to be what I'll do for things I can't watch at the same time. Also, why? We're good, right? Yeah, we're good. It's fine. So I'll do VODs for people if they're at the same time. Sometimes it depends on what kind of stream it is. It depends on if it's like a stream with an ongoing story or... So sometimes I'll rotate depending on what it is. Sometimes I'll rotate through. Sometimes I'll watch one and then... Mega Mantiqueen. And then sometimes I'll VOD, depending. And then... Like if I do a VOD, I'll try to maybe say something nice on the YouTube channel. Like, you know, hit the YouTubes that way. Yeah, that's why I like Mage almost as much as Vampire, but I'm not really into the rest of the World of Darkness because I can't engage as directly with those issues. That's fair. I think New World of Darkness handled changeling differently from the old versions. Oh, well, didn't they do a lot of changes for New World of Darkness? I never played New World of Darkness, so I don't know how it worked thematically. I didn't not play it because I'm not one of those people that, like, look, I wasn't that person that was like, I'm not going to play New World of Darkness because it's not Old World of Darkness, and so I hate it. I was one of those people who said, I'm not going to play World of Darkness 2.5. Oh, look, a monster. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this. I'm going to have more bullets. Hi, bullets. 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 Hi, hi. Hi, everybody. Bullets. Hey, how y'all doing? Bullets? Okay. Hi, everyone. Monsters? Yep, It's interesting. Sure. Kill all the things, my friends. Okay. All right. So, okay. We're gonna just gonna note that. Just watch who you're in the mood for, depending on what they're playing. If you try to bounce around too much, you'll just cause yourself into. That's true, and I think you can support people even if you can't watch the stream live. So I agree with Atomic there. It's like sometimes you can't watch them live, but you can be supportive in other ways. You know, chatting in Discord or giving likes on YouTube or that kind of a thing, and you know, yeah. Resta says, I suppose it has to do with what you have to work with. Bare minimum, if you can't super donate, there's always giving someone a follow. Giving someone a follow is a good one. Giving someone a follow is good. Yeah. Super Rave Monster says, oh my god, yeah, like changing being able to blend in just fine, but their safety is entirely just out of their being able to always be like others, not themselves. Yeah. Like super deep and interesting, right? Ice Bunny says, the supermarket has a yoga campaign, so all the things are yoga something. But maybe the yoga shop is a better place to get them if they're needed. You probably don't need them. I would say you don't need one right now. If you need one, then go get one. But if you don't need one right now, then but you don't need one right now is what I'm going to say. Like if you need one, you can get one. But there are a lot of dead skeletons here. I'm glad the skeletons pick up okay. Well, we just got some stuff. Also, the VODs let me catch things at times. Yeah, I VOD quite a lot, actually, because sometimes things happen all at the same time, and I got a VOD. Now I have to watch like 15 minutes of VOD because my mother wanted me to talk to me about stuff I can't do anything about. Oh, I am so sorry, Krellin. I find, I know that everybody's different. Everybody's different. Yes, everybody's different. And everybody has different, why are there so many monsters? And also, what are we doing with our lives? Fallbrook Crossroads, Fallbrook. We're supposed to be heading somewhere. What is this? Active quests, Starcross Troopers. We've got missions, and I think we're wandering around like random people. That's fine. We're gonna just kill those things right now, and then we'll come back to it. We're gonna find out where we're going, like, you know, in a moment. It's fine. Also, I should probably use my special time power a little bit more. Is probably what I should be doing. Oh, hi. Now that we're shooting, if you want, hi. Oh, hi. Hi. Let's maybe let's do that. I'm a little worried. Oh, hi. Okay. Well, I missed my pistol, but this has way more bullets. So you know, it's cool. Everybody, mantis swarms, like it's great. All right, here we go. Okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine, everybody. It's fine. If you wanted to give them a view, you can have the stream open with the tab muted. I occasionally do that. Muting the stream pauses it when you leave the tab. When you leave the tab, so that doesn't work for giving a view, but muting a tab works. Would have someone told me 20 years ago that I will do yoga, I would have filled him one or her. Yoga actually, I think yoga's pretty awesome. I've done yoga. I enjoy it very much. there are things about yoga that I really like. What I really like is when they make you do certain poses that are really not difficult at all, like at all, or they shouldn't be. They're just like standing. Like there's a pose, it's a chair pose. And chair pose is where you're like standing up, right? And you kind of like put your feet together, you kneel a little bit, and you kind of just like get, like you sort of just like crouch a little bit, and you put your hands up like that. And it's just like there. And like you do that, and like then after like not long, you're like sweating bullets and you feel like you want to die. And you're just like, you're not running or like doing jumping jacks or like lifting weights. You're just kind of standing there like that, and you want to die. And I appreciate that about yoga. I was like, yoga, this is kicking my butt, and I appreciate that. That's all I'm gonna say. Trooper has gone so long without playing. He's like, oh, where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I reading these people? That's actually true. That is a true thing. I read New World Darkness had Malkavians, and I assumed that pointless change was Malkovians. Was represented by Never Looked At It Again. For me, not playing the newer versions had more to do with finances than system changes. For me, I didn't like, basically, the difference between 2E and 2.5 for Vampire was the introduction of Metaplot, and I didn't like that. Yeah, I was concerned with the VODs because I know that Twitch focuses on views during a stream. That's true. But I like Javai's idea. I subbed, but I wanted to add a view other streaming. Yeah, no, that's true, actually. You can have the tab up. And that's actually so, like I know people who have done that for me. They're like, I can't watch right now, but I'm going to put the tab up, and so that it'll count for the views, which is really nice when people do that, and I'm very thankful for when they do, because it does make a difference, and so that's nice. This is definitely the road. Why are there so many monsters? It's not like you're playing a video. I know. I have to talk to the factions again to get them to stop. That's where I have to do that. But what's happened is I'm just kind of wandering right now, and I just need to head to those factions. I was told that I need a mat, blocks, and booster because big body yoga modifies the exercise in a way the rounds are not. Yeah, so you'll need a mat. Definitely have yoga blocks. I have 2 pair of yoga blocks. Definitely get them because when you first start yoga, you're often not as flexible, so you'll need the blocks to basically help. I don't know what a booster is. I imagine it's sort of like a yoga block, but yes. Star Cross Trooper sounds like a dating sim, and I feel like we should try it. Javai says, I mean, yeah, they made changes, but if I recall correctly, the core ideas remain kind of the same. The vampire is still a vampire, the werewolf a werewolf. Old changeling was half fae, new changeling go more into the whole fae, taking children and raising them, changing as a result. Oh, that's interesting. T-pose or no pose at all. Big Curry says, big sim in yoga, no pain, no gain, or so I'm told, but my thighs and tummy thank me. Yeah, I just have always been really impressed by how yoga can do so much with so little. My knees also do not approve of kneeling on hard surfaces. Yeah. No, yoga mats, everybody. Javai says, I haven't played New Changeling, but not 100% sure, but old was kind of looking dark beneath the surface. In the new, darkness was lessened. Oh, that's interesting. Star Trek Adventures. Oh, Ava, enjoy the Star Trek. And also, let us know later somewhere who you're playing and what that's about. Yeah, I know a streamer who couldn't reach partner because their views fluctuated so widely. Some of their shows were like 200, 400 plus, but those were only 30s. That's when it really hit how important views during stream is. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I am so far away from hitting partner. I am so far. I mean, I'm doing pretty well, I think. My average views are like often like 20s to 40s, like in that time frame, 20s to 40s. But 20s to 40s is not 70s, which is what you need for. Oops, wrong button. I messed up, everybody. I thought that was a button, but it was not the button. It was the wrong button. And I used the wrong button, and I apologize for it because having the wrong button meant that I did not do what I was supposed to do, and I apologize. Although I don't know why I'm apologizing to you all. Although maybe like you're super offended that my sniping was completely ineffective. That is entirely possible. Happy looking, meant to say. I was a gymnast. Ooh, Curry, you were a gymnast? Until my joints gave out early, but I always love those high intensity, low mood exercises. Yeah. Happy facade. Everything is good except everything is actually awful. Yeah. Wait, ambush shorts. Wait, wrong button. Reset. Yeah. Where do you get this footage of me playing any shooter ever? I don't know. Like, because maybe I stole it. I stole that footage. Is what happened. Yes. Sniper, no sniping. I did not snipe. That was bad, but it's fine. You were over 50 last Sunday, and that was with Chris Spicy happening at the same time. So you're doing well. Yeah. Yeah, so that was like, I was really so excited for Cthulhu Confidential tomorrow. Yeah, I learned yesterday that over 80% of streamers' average views are 0 to 5. Only 8% of streamers are more than 20 views. Kira. This is so important. Yeah, I was talking about this recently. This is really important. This is so important. And it's a thing that makes me go like this. Because people don't realize that. Iceman's like, Drippy, you're great. I've not smoked since February, and now I get into yoga with you. Oh, hey, yoga. Go yoga. I'm incredible that you forgot how to play this. I did. Also, like, I'm trying to like get to a place where am I even going right now? Look, I'm gonna just fast travel. This is where I'm going, right? Apparently, I can't fast travel there. Can I fast travel? Oh, there. We're gonna just do that. We're just going there. This is it. This is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. I was so happy when I was streaming and had 11 people. I was like, this is good enough for me. So the thing about this is a thing I think about a lot. I think about this a lot. I love Drew's face he made when he's read through the statistics. So iShield, that was Kira. iShield says, it would be interesting if Twitch and other big sites release streaming analytics in broad trends. iShield, there's a place where you can get it. I'm actually working on I was asked to write an article for Knucklebone, and as soon as I get time, I will do it. And I downloaded all the stuff, but now that data is a little bit old, so I'm gonna wanna re-download it. But there is a website, it's called sullygnome.com, and it does all these analytics on Twitch. So that's how I know that my stream, like where my streams are, like you can figure out by category. So for example, sullygnome.com, give me a second. So it's Twitch analytics and statistics. Let me look at the category tabletop RPGs. Okay, so if we look at the most watched streams for the tabletop RPGs category for the last 7 days, if we are ranked by watch time, like there are different ways, there are different analytics to sort of rank the things. So if you go by watch time, Cthulhu Confidential from last Sunday is number 43 out of 771. If you go by peak viewers, my stream last week was number 38 out of 771. If you go by average viewers, Cthulhu Confidential was 35 out of 771. So what I'm trying to say is that people often look at their stuff and they think that they think they're doing really badly. People are really hard on themselves, and they're really like, they think, oh no, I'm so terrible, I'm so unpopular, I'm so bad, why am I so awful? Like people get really down on themselves, right? They really think, oh, look at my numbers are so bad, I only have 20 people, oh no. Or they'll look at, if it's RPGs, they'll look at Critical Role, which gets 50,000 people, 50 to 60,000 people, and they're like, oh my gosh, they've got 50 to 60,000 people and I've got 25. Oh, I'm such a failure. Oh no, I'm so terrible. Or they'll look at video game streamers with like 100,000 people and they're like, oh, why am I so bad? And I was like, people, you are doing amazing. 25 is phenomenal. You can't look and compare yourself to Critical Role or like Ninja or whomever those people are, because those people are not normal. They're the outliers. And like hating on yourself and thinking you're a disappointment is not, I mean, you're not seeing how amazing you are. And that makes me very frustrated because actually it's not true that you're doing badly. You're doing really, really well. And I just wish people could understand that, you know? I really wish people would. It really is one of those things that I think about a lot. Yeah, I average like 3 or 4 stream, but it's fun having people around anyways. And the thing is, 3 to 4 is good. You're right. It's in there. So that's Atomica. The only thing I wonder about those stats is if it takes inactive accounts into account. For Sully Gnome only counts streams, not accounts. So everything is based on a stream. So for example, I did not stream any RPGs in July. I streamed video games, but not RPGs, so that none of my stuff would have shown up in the analytics under the RPG category because I did not stream any RPGs. So for Sully Gnome specifically, it only counts active streams. So that's what they're looking at. So inactive things would not be in those stats for Sully Gnome. If you like that, Kira, you should watch the VOD for his multi-hour charity stream where he found out how much has been raised. This Ice Mini says, this means a shit ton to me. A lot of times I was not pushed out into trying and got in my comfort zone. No, I mean, do it. It's good. Shmuel says, damn, unstable internet. How many tangents I missed? I think we've been pretty consistent. I think we haven't been super tangential. We've been mostly in horror, and then we kind of moved into horror RPGs. So mostly, I think we've been mostly pretty good. Atomic says, I love Sully Gnome. I use it to bitch out one of my other fave streamers when he complains his channel isn't improving. Yeah, right, because it is. None of the viewers here are average. Yes, I get to send him the graph showing his channel constantly going up, and that is important work. And it really, hey D-Max oder Servus, wie geht's? Wie geht's dir, D-Max 1948? Was machst du denn? Ja, Mai. Hallo, willkommen hier rein zu meine kleine so Internetsplatz. Ist angenehm. Welcome in, fellow German. I want you all to know that I'm not technically German at all, but like in my heart, my little Herzl, I'm a little German. Well, let me rewind that. In my little Herzl, I'm a little Bavarian. Like in my heart, I'm a little Bavarian in my heart. Just want you to know it. Yeah, Carlin says, never compare yourself to the giant outlier. Never do it. Just don't do it. And Nino's like, pretty sure my average count's 2. But again, like, that's average. Like, that's an average amount. Like, if you're doing like 1 through 5, you're doing really well, actually. It's like, that's average. You're doing your stuff. iShield says, yeah, the focus should be on community engagement with the weaker one on growth. Yeah. Scabby Knack says, my streams are high concept art designed for consumption by robots. It's fine. That's cool. That's cool. Actually, Scabby, I really like that. Courier says, also those high traffic areas of the internet often aren't as friendly or as fun as the quieter spots. That's true. So don't sweat the numbers next to the quality of the time spent. Totally, that's such a great point. And also, like, what kind of experience do you want? Do you know what I mean? Like, what experience do you want? Like, I really enjoy Critical Role, but I would never watch it on its channel. I host it with folks coming in and hanging out because that's a better environment. Ooh. I always feel that somebody's watching me and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Thank you for the follow, D-Max. Thank you for the follow. Thank you. If I just end up with 2 or 3 times a week, 30 to 60 minutes yoga, I have plus on the good account. It's nice. You know, even just 2 or 3 times a week, 30 minutes is great. Like, that's like, you just do that and you're great. And we got some gameplay in, mostly me shooting people. I considered an accomplishment to push past my anxiety and stream it all. Origami Shuriken, yeah, and that's amazing, right? That's amazing too. I had 3 to 4 people in my chat this morning and it was actually really fun. Oh, yay. Thank you, D-Max. Thanks for those kind words. It means a lot. I do admit it's discouraging when you're in the 0 to 5 category and you see others who do so high, but I'm trying to view it as all things take time. Well, first off, that's also true. This is this August, right? In November, it'll be I'll have finished my 4th year. November will be my 4th year of streamiversary. I've been doing this for 4 years. And like, I am where I'm at, and I think I'm in a really great spot, and like, yay for me, I'm so excited. But it just takes a while to build up. It just takes a while. And even then, like, you have to like find your space, you know? You have to find your space. I want to claim pretty average overall, but guess being ace means I can't do that. No, Javai, maybe not average, but your aces. Atomic says, unfortunately, I think people don't always understand that success doesn't always require fame. You can have a successful restaurant in a community without being Gordon Ramsay with an entertainment empire. I have a thought about this, Atomica. You can have a successful stream with a couple hundred followers. You don't need to be a Markiplier with millions of viewers to get a point where you're, yes. Also, I want to say something about success. Iceman is like, your German is so cute, YouTuber. You buy it. Well, I learned my German in Augsburg. So that's where I learned how to speak German, in the streets in Bavaria. Yes. Vulpus says, I'm a giant outlier. Okay, I'm not as giant as when the quarantine started, but still pretty big. Understandable bias is nice. Oh yeah, it's on protest music, the Bale Project. Yeah, you might like it. It's the history of African-American protest music. It's really, the bulk of it's like in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but you get sort of before and after. Yes. Good, but CR chat is sometimes unbearable, unlike here where the community is awesome. Yeah, and like I want to be able to like chat with people and like have it actually, because it's too big. It's too big, you know? So about that random question, yes, Eye Shield. Yes. I had a random question, didn't I? I did. Yes, I did. I'm trying to find it. Where was it? Oh, Eye Shield. I probably just lost it. That's my life. It's terrible. Atomica says, it's weird to think it's not necessarily a small number, but you only need, what, 300 or 400 subs to make a US minimum wage? Oh, wow. And if you get a 10% sub rate, that's 4K followers. It's not like you meet a million. But yeah, but also even, then I'm hanging, yes, you are. It's been almost 4 years. Word of mouth makes a difference. Also being a good, I think also what helps streams is being a good community member at other streams as well. Like if you participate in other streams as a member, you sort of are part of a community. So it's about like rising tide, lifting all boats. If it wasn't for the horse, I would never have gotten into college. My favorite overheard random comment. In the streets. Yeah. So there was another thing that I wanted to share with you. Here we go.
Our fuel cells are now primed with Alta-Vitae gas. As the organics say, let us hope we do not explode in transit to the groundbreaker.
Oh, I don't think I want to travel anywhere yet. I don't want to leave. I'm not ready for leaving. Also, why do we have...
Didn't I request no more fertilizer shipments be brought on board? Who keeps ordering these?
I don't know. Where did these cow come from? Why are we in Firefly right now? What is happening? I'm leaving. I'm out of here. That's it. That's fine. My relatives' hubbies are native Bayern, and with them I want subtitles, but they are also from München. Yeah, we're gonna continue. Yeah, if you're looking to exist on Twitch long term, you need to understand how to stream. That requires building a network of peers. I think so. But also, what are you doing? Oh, I remember I want to talk about success. It was a question about divisions along... Oh, yeah. Thank you. East and West. Yeah. Because the perception here is that the unification was arousing success. Oh, but my professor of German history said there were real divisions in the country between East and West. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. You're in Firefox, that's a joke. Yeah, Vulpes, I should have. Yeah. It's okay. You know, I'll go to the city first, because I think I can break down stuff there. I think I could do that. So Eye Shield, I'm going to tell you some things that were really interesting about reunification that were difficult. And one of those things was... you know, look. Oh, wait. Look, there's some stuff right here. I can sell some stuff at the vending machine. Right? So there we go. Boom. Selling some stuff. Right here. Vending machine. Boom. Awesome. Because, you know, things, so to verify, is Firefly like Hunter by Hunter and Game of Thrones content that's really good but never seemed to get finished? That's a really hard question to answer. That's a really hard question to answer. And it's oh, wait. I can do this by weight, can't I? I can. That is a very hard question to answer. And I'm going to tell you something else. There are people who love Firefly, like they love it, because there are people who really, really love Joss Whedon. And they're super, super, super into Firefly. And I think Firefly is good. I think, however, that I don't like I wanted this by name. This is not going to work out for me. We need this by name. Okay. However, I think it is not as good as everyone says it is. And I'm not saying it's bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's bad. I am, however, saying that people get super, super invested in Joss Whedon stuff as if Joss Whedon is the second coming of everything and the most feminist person ever and the best person ever and like the most awesome person ever. Like there's a lot going on with sort of like Joss Whedon worship, and I just don't think it's that good. And there's some things that he does that are irritating. He has these tics. There are these like things he does that he thinks are edgy, but then they're really not that edgy. They're just kind of irritating, actually. Yeah. Also, look, I'm selling things right now, and I hope that you're proud of me, because I just sold a bunch of stuff, even though it makes me nervous. And then I'm gonna sell all that too. So you should be proud of me. So you know it. Like I think that like it's not bad. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not bad. It's fine. I just don't think it's. I think the thing is that Firefly is the one where like Whedon fans like get super intense about how it's like the best thing ever. It's the best science fiction you'll ever see in your entire life. It's the most transcendent. I was like, hold on, relax. It's not all that. It's fine, but you need to relax a little bit. Come on, like relax. It's fine. That's all. Courier's like, Joss Whedon is so problematic. And that is true. That's true. Technically Firefly finished. Got a movie to, yeah. And my ethereal kids could be, comic sense, but I'll never live up to the hype. Yeah, it's a lot of hype. Firefly, yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say Joss Whedon is feminist in about a decade, but they used to say it all the time. They were like, Joss Whedon, the biggest feminist in the world. And I was like, ooh. The more I hear about Joss Whedon, the less I like him and his content. But I think it's time to get the popcorn. I'm learning a lot today from Trooper Jet. We see, I did selling. Plaintiff actress says he's a straight up abuser, and his work shows. I think it's tricky because I've heard what I've heard about him in terms of abuse. I've not heard that he was an abuser in that way. So what I've heard basically is that his wife was really upset with him. His wife was really, really angry with him, because my understanding was that it was not that he was an abuser in terms like the people like, so he was having affairs. This is what it is, right? He was cheating on his wife a lot. And she wrote an article saying that him cheating on her was abuse. And basically also him cheating on her was a form of sexual assault, because she would not have had sex with him if she had known that he was cheating on her. And because he did not tell her that he was cheating on her, she was giving uninformed consent. So basically he was a sexual abuser because he was cheating on her, which I'm not really, that's like a line of logic I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable with. And he was cheating on her with people that he worked with, like with women on the shows. But my understanding is the women on the shows were consensually having affairs with him. It's just it's just not appropriate. Like, you should not be having affairs with the people you're directing. It's not appropriate. You shouldn't be doing it. People do it, but you shouldn't. So but he also just seems like a jerk. So like, it's a way in which I'm not saying he's not a jerk, because I think he is a jerk, but I think that some of the conversations around what abuse is and what it looks like is a little bit complicated with him. So Schmelza says, reunification was one big looting party. My uncle was in the West German military at the time, specifically logistics, was part of taking inventory of all the equipment of the East, and he always told stories how his superiors were just taking stuff and brag with their sons now at all the new NVA sleeping bags and such. Yeah, Schmelza, and I have other things about that as well. For the time, it was quite a good show, but it was before the golden age of TV were now. Fair. Oh, I'll see you later, Atomica. Joss Whedon calls himself a feminist ally, and that's the problem. Regardless of your opinions of Whedon, he had some really good actors. He did. And Vergokai was amazing. And how is Joss? Yeah. So just, yeah. And then if we want how Joss, we can talk about also how Joss Whedon is problematic. So that was like the personal life stuff, but there are other things about Joss Whedon that we can talk about. She was very angry with him. And he was screwing any of his actors he could, but apparently that was consensual, but again, not appropriate. People have spoken out against Joss, his ex-wife, Charisma Carpenter. Yeah. Now, Charisma Carpenter spoke out against him, not calling him, she didn't say that he abused her, but that basically she got pregnant. And then it was also not just him, it was also like a bit of the circle there. She got pregnant and they found her difficult, so they ditched her, right? Like, so that, because she had like anxiety. By the way, this is what we need. We're gonna go here. She had anxiety, and so like she needed to have somebody on set to help her do lines and things like that because, you know, she had anxiety. I cannot fast travel while near hostiles. Well, that's just grand. So like she had anxiety, which meant that, like, you know, she took a bit more time on set and all that. And then she got pregnant and her pregnancy was very difficult. And they're like, you need to be at work. And she's like, I can't be at work. So then they fired her. So like jerk material, like for real. Like, I am not saying he's not a jerk. He sounds like a huge jerk to me. So where are you all going? Hi friends, where are you going right now? So like, yeah. And I think the guy on Cyborg also thought that he was like kind of like a terrible jerk. So like, he does not seem like a good person is what I'm trying to say, right? He does not seem like a good person. But that said, can I fast travel from here? That said, I think specificity is always kind of important. I can agree that cheating being emotional abuse, possibly, less sure on the rest. Well, it's tricky because she didn't know about it, right? So is that emotional abuse? Is it? I don't know. My great-grandpa called the DDR till the end Die Zone because he had a grudge with his sister's son moved to the DDR after World War II. Taking advantage of his position as director is abuse. Even if it was consensual, it's entirely inappropriate, especially when the actors who were usually quite a bit younger than he was. Curry, this is the tricky thing, because when we do this, no, the guards are not mad at me anymore. This is also not the main town. So this is the thing that's really tricky, Career. We're sort of setting up a space where women never can consent, right? And I find this is like a new space we're at right now, where basically women can't consent ever. And then we kind of make this space where basically, even if a woman actively seeks out something and consents to it, we decide that it still doesn't count and she's still a victim and it's still abuse, even if she's like, no, this is like, this actually is very 1890s and 1970s in ways that make me feel kind of uncomfortable. And there is a particular current trend that basically takes all agency away from women in pretty intense ways, and it makes me very uncomfortable. And it's framed as progressive, but it makes it so that women also, where am I? Oh, I know where I am. I see what's going on right now. It makes it so that women are always already victims, and it sort of sets up, it basically reinforces the predator-prey dynamic between men and women in ways that are this super bioessentialist, also feeds into transphobia against trans women specifically. Like, there's a lot going on there that makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. And it's very antithetical to like third wave feminism. And we're kind of getting into a throwback to second wave cultural feminism right now, which also makes a lot of sense because we have the rise of TERFs at this moment. Like, I think it's not coincidental that a lot of the rhetoric we're having right now, that we have a lot of TERFs and TERF ideology around men and women's sexuality is also just sort of becoming very normalized at the moment, and it makes me very concerned. And if any of those women who dated him while they're actually a lot of them spoke out and they said they were totally into it. So it's like tricky. Seems more Joe Castle than Fulham. So yeah, I mean, as someone whose spouse cheated on her for years and was more concerned that I might get pregnant unexpectedly than he was with being safe in his affairs, I have some strong feelings. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I think cheating can be abuse, but it's complicated. Depends on the circumstances. Also, we have to start deciding what we mean by abuse. What does abuse mean? Our definitions of abuse right now are very broad. We're like at this moment, we're living in a moment right now where almost everything is being framed as abuse right now. A lot of things are being framed as abuse, and are the second wave feminism not in the second wave feminism is from the okay, Ice Bunny. Second wave feminism is probably going to be from the 50s to the end of the 70s. So second wave feminism is 50s, 60s, 70s. First wave feminism is like 1890s to the 1920s. Third wave feminism is like 80s and 90s. And I suppose we're in the fourth wave feminism right now, which seems to be kind of like a throwback to second wave feminism, if you want to know. Yeah. It's I think it's very tricky. Also, I don't know if this, yeah, we'll go here, it's fine. I hadn't thought of it like that. I still think what he did was complete repeated breach of the relationship she consented it to. I'd consider that abuse. So I think we can like think about that. We can think about what this means, abuse. And I think we have to be, and I want to say about the attributes, right, yeah. But I also think we have to think about what the word abuse does, what that does, what the word abuse does, especially in a moment where we think if you abuse people, you are an abuser, and abusers are evil people, et cetera, and what constitutes abuse. And I'm going to just throw some things out there to sort of ponder, right? And I want to talk about this but from specific reasons as well. A couple of things to think about. So is lying to someone abuse? Is any negative thing abuse? Is anything that hurts someone's feeling abuse? Is anything that somebody doesn't like abuse? Right? So we're kind of making abuse everything you don't like. Is a breach of trust abuse, or is that a breach of trust? But these and I'm not going to give you an answer right now, but I want to throw out some things to think about. Schmelzer says, yeah, I sometimes get the feeling that every time something objectionable, problematic is being discussed, people always go for the big gun words, immediately leaving no room for nuance. And I want to think about this. A couple of things. I have heard a couple of times that ghosting someone is abuse, right? That if you ghost someone, if you cut contact with someone and do not contact them, and you're like, ooh, I cut contact with that person, you're an abuser because you ghosted them, and ghosting someone is emotional abuse. The word nuance is when we lose sight of a lot these days, yes. And this is why I want to bring this up because I think this is important to think about. Gervais says, I think for me, with cheating to be abuse, it would have to be frequent and probably done openly, so repeatedly discarding the partner's emotions. Ooh, hey, half horseman. Yes, I want to hear your thoughts. So people are like, oh, ghosting is emotional abuse. You're emotionally abusing somebody if you're ghosting someone. And I think about this a lot. And I think about how I just disagree. It depends, right? But I think about I had a stalker. I had a person who was stalking me, and I found this out. Like this, there was a person like I'd spoken to. Like the last time I spoke to him was like 12 years earlier. I knew them as an undergraduate in college, the person I knew in college. And like 10, 12 years later, they sent me a letter to my work. They found out where I worked. Like, it's been 10 years. My name has changed, and I don't even live in the same state anymore. They sent me a letter to my work. A letter to my work. It was like multiple pages about how they love me, how they've always loved me, how we're soulmates, how we're meant to be together, how they're waiting for me, all this stuff. Like, and how, like, it's been clear they've been, like, following me. It was like a whole thing. And I did not respond to that letter. I did not respond. I was like, nope, did not respond. And that person could then go and say, oh, you know, Trooper, ghosted me. I wrote Trooper this letter and Trooper ghosted me. Trooper's an abuser. That's abusive because Trooper ghosted me, and ghosting is abuse. And I'm going to tell you, I did not respond to that person because that person was creeping me the heck out. And I was freaked out by that. And I'm not going to engage with somebody who makes me feel unsafe. And I don't feel like, and the way that we're using our rhetoric allows that person who was stalking me and creeping me out to be the victim of me as an abuser, right? So I think that we have to be really careful the way we use the word abuse, because we can use, what am I wearing? What am I wearing? All right. The way in which the word abuse can be used to cover abusers abusing other people, right? Like, so we are using it in ways that make me feel very, like, sometimes it's like, oh wow, that's abuse, and you're like, ooh, that's creepy. But sometimes it's a way people use the word abuse in order to abuse people, right? And so then it becomes I get a little bit concerned about how we are using some of these terms, especially we're going to talk about consent for a moment, and I want to talk about consent, and this is something I really want to talk about because of trans stuff. Courier says, abuse is nuanced, but I'd say when it comes to a marriage, there's a legal basis for trust. People don't commit to a marriage monogamously accidentally. Well, not all marriages are monogamous. And I also think of, like, I have been cheated on. I have been. And there are differences, I think. Like, I'm thinking about, there are different ways to cheat on people. I've experienced different kinds of being cheated on, and not all of them I experience as abuse. Some of them I experience as like jerky behavior, like you're a jerk. You know what I mean? Like I was like, wow, you're a real jerk. But that's not the same thing as abuse. But there were other ways in which a person cheated on me that did feel like abuse, because they were I think there are different ways of doing it. And do you want to hear a story? We'll hear a story, but I want to have this other thing first. I also think cheating to be abused has to be a very involved relationship, truly marriage, but not required. Yeah. Chris was like, that was so extra creepy. It was creepy. Vulpa says, I saw a great tweet today from Will Wheaton's wife. Someone contacted her because Will had blocked him, and he was convinced that she should get him to remove the block, and she responded with a great post about boundaries. Yeah. But the real abuse was the intense invasion of your privacy there. But maybe I'm using the word completely differently from how you've seen it used. Origami Shirk says, ghosting, then coming back and expecting to pick up where you left off, and then ghosting again repeatedly, that could become emotionally abusive. Yes. But just cutting off contact isn't automatically so. Right, and see, Origami Shirk, this is where I'm at. Like, I want us to sort of recognize that there is nuance here. Somebody being like, hey, and then cutting off contact, and then like freezing you out, then coming back, and then freezing you out. That's now emotional abuse, right? But cutting off contact with somebody, like I think about this a lot because of physically and emotional abusive relationships. Hey, somebody's physically and emotionally abusing you, get out. You don't need to tell them anything. Go, ghost them, leave, right? Like, I don't think you're an abuser because you're leaving somebody who's abusing you and you don't want to tell them about it. You know what I mean? So like, I think we have to think about that nuance, that definitely there's a way in which you're doing that kind of emotional manipulation, and that is abuse. But I think just like splitting out of there, nope, is not. But some people will not allow that nuance. They're just like, ghosting is abuse. And I was like, that's too broad of a statement. We really have to sort of think about the circumstances here a little bit, you know? Really. Half R says, the amount of people who are all self-care is important, and you should have a right to remove yourself from a conversation or mute them, block them on Twitter. And then in the same breath, bitch about someone is an asshole because I would love to have this conversation, but they block me because they're too much of a coward to have this conversation. It's quite frankly baffling. Yes. Also, me blocking you on Twitter is not abuse. Like, you know what I mean? Like people can get very weird, right? We've gotten a very strange sense of entitlement in social media. Yeah, like boundaries are important, and having boundaries is not necessarily abuse. I will note that some people can be abusing people and pretend that it's about boundaries, but it's actually abuse. But we have to be able to sort of notice that some things that might seem like not abuse might actually be abuse, and some things that might seem like abuse might not be abuse. It just might be something else. So I think it's really complicated, right? People have questioned my masculinity when I've discussed being in a relationship where a woman was repeatedly abusive to me. People who I'm sure if the judges were involved were reversed would wish me harm rather than call me names. Yeah, people have really interested. Yeah, I think we really have to think about abuse. We really are not like. Our discourse on abuse is really problematic, is what I'm going to say, because not everyone gets to be a victim. And some people are always already abusers, and that then allows for really unhealthy things happening and dangerous things happening. I think we have to really worry about it. I think ghosting can be problematic, but I don't think abuse is applicable in most cases. Not all marriages are monogamous, sure, but there's an agreement that's made between two people. And this then the PS gets to that question: is every broken agreement abuse? And that's the thing. Like, if we make everything abuse, that makes me feel uncomfortable, because some things, you know what I mean? Like, some things are like that flattens out everything in ways that becomes makes me worried. I would recommend to Gray Rock my uncle because he only communicates to find out I'm the loser. Oh yeah. Right, like how Tripper has this incredibly educational conversation now that he's like, what am I wearing? Yeah, it's true. I may reconsider my statement of cheating can be abuse to that cheating can be an instrument for abuse. More a change of phrasing than a concept. Yes, I think that cheating can be an instrument for abuse, but it might not be. It could be, but it might not be. I think it's malicious. If he wanted to sleep around and his wife didn't want him to do that, he should have ended the marriage. Doing it repeatedly and secretly knowing what the consequence of doing that would be to another person is abuse. Courier, I need to tell you this story. I think I need to tell you this story, and then you can think about this. Barons, getting mad doesn't mean the person that made you mad is an abuser. Even if the person is an asshole, that being an asshole doesn't make the, like, you can be an abuser, an asshole, but not an abuser. I want to come back to that cheating thing and maliciousness and repeatedly, because I want to get there, because there's a thing I think that was an interesting moment that I think we could talk about. I wouldn't consider cheating to be an abuse because there are many dynamics at work. You can only look at that case by case basis. Korea 3, no wait, I want to tell you the story. I wanted to tell you the story. Okay. I have a friend who's in a marriage he hates and is terrified of divorce because in this state there's a very good chance he'll lose access to his children. The more we apply the term abuse to everything, the more dimly it's meaning, which makes it really, hate to be Grant, tricky. And then you get donate find something as real abuse and folks lash out. Then yeah, it's very difficult. So let me tell you about the time I was being cheated on, and then we can think about what this means in terms of abuse, right? And so this was my first girlfriend. I was 19, just turned 19, PH says, I don't want to defend Josh because he's a jerk for cheating no matter what, but we don't know what that relationship, right, I don't want to, like, he's clearly a jerk. Do you know what I mean? Like, Joss Whedon is clearly a jerk, and he's a jerk on multiple levels, and I'm not, you know, but, so anyway, so I was dating somebody. I just turned 19. I was dating somebody who was probably, I don't know, 24, 25, whatever. And this person, like, we started dating, and we had this relationship, which I'm going to say was not good. Hey, Takerosh. 19 seems young to you now. I know. I would say it was not a good relationship is what I'm going to say. That's how I'm going to frame that. I'm going to say it was not good. But, like, there were things that I think were jerky. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there were things about that relationship. What year? This was, for context, this was when I was in Korea. So it would have been, hold on. Hold on a second. Yeah, it was 91. It's 1991. Dude, what do undead physicists craves? Brains. Oh, okay, that's really good. I think there needs to, but need to consider it more that abuse in the way discussed here almost necessitates repetition. Not sure because there is abuse, but it can be done a single time for sure. I think we have to sort of think about it. Oh yeah, I was in the military. And so I was in Korea. I was like the first person I was dating. This was not a good relationship. And I think we could have a discussion about whether or not this relationship was abuse or not. We can have this discussion. There's a discussion to be had. 18 was it? Me too. High five. Army. So I think there's a discussion to be had about this. So let me tell you the things that I think were not good about that relationship. Also, this person was messed up, but whatever. That's, hello, grossness. I need to go this way. So I was doing, was my relationship abusive? It's the worst game show and it hasn't even started. Other than Barry Schoenfeld, all film and TV directors are power mad assholes who need to have their views be the only one. Yeah, well, it's... like it was like little stupid things, like, you know, that were, I think. So, for example, I was in I was in a band in the Army. I spent like 3 months on tour in this band, and I would tour. I would do shows, right? And I asked her to come see my shows, like I'm performing, and never, not once did she ever see any of my shows. And like I supported her stuff, but she never supported my stuff, which I think is kind of jerky. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that was not great, and I did not appreciate that. It's not a good sign. I didn't think that, like, I'm not going to call that abusive, but I didn't think it was a good sign. But that was very distressing to me. And there's actually like it was emotionally distressing. My boyfriend's ex is a pain in the ass and doesn't know I exist because I did not want to be the reason for him not seeing the kids. Yeah. Right. Like, did she give her, she just didn't, PH, one of the problems with this person was that she was an alcoholic. And she just, you know, she would say she's gonna come, then she'd just get drunk and not come. And like, I had to do a lot of caretaking in that relationship because she'd just get drunk and ridiculous all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, alcoholics don't keep plans. Yes. So, but here's the thing. It turns out, and I'm gonna tell you, there was her ex hated me and was like really mean to me all the time. And I never really got why. I never really understood why her ex hated me so much. And I was like, that's weird. And I wanted to have a conversation with the ex to figure out what was going on, but like that never really happened. So let me tell you what was happening. It turned out, I found out that the woman that I was dating was cheating on me regularly with her ex. But wait, there's more. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I learned. I learned that, oh, right, that's what's happening. That wasn't what was happening. What was happening was that she'd never broken up with her ex. She'd never broken up with her ex at all. So she was cheating on her ex, who was not her ex, with me, and her ex knew about it. And so she was basically cheating on her ex kind of in front of her ex with me, and I had no idea. So for me, I did not receive that I did not receive that as abuse towards me. I thought of that as abuse towards the ex, because she was repeatedly, maliciously, in her face, intentionally causing harm to her not actually ex on purpose regularly. And that was like, for me, that was like abusiveness. And once I found out that was going on, I was like, we're done. Like, that's it, right? But I did not experience her cheating on me when I didn't know about it as abuse. Like, I didn't know about it. I found out about it, and then I was like, wow, that's awful. It hurt my feelings. I wasn't feeling good about it. Although, to be honest, I was more upset that she hadn't come to my shows, because that was actually kind of like a thing. But I thought that what she was doing to her ex, not her ex, was 100% abusive. So for me, in that situation, I experienced the cheating on her ex as abuse, but the cheating on me is not abuse. It was disrespectful. It was rude. It was a betrayal. It was messed up. It was a jerky thing to do, but she was not intentionally, maliciously hurting me. She was doing that to the person that she was actually dating. And so, like, for me, being in that moment where there were two people who were both being cheated on, I felt like there was a difference. Like, I felt that there was a difference in what I would call abuse. Yeah, right. So like that, like, it was awful. Like, it was pretty awful, actually. And also, it turns out some of the reasons why she was not coming to my shows is because she was with the person that she was dating. You know what I mean? So, and I was the person that was being used to be cheated on. Yeah, she was using me, right? Which is like messed up. I didn't like it. Yeah, that's what I would say is required for cheating to be abuse. Not just causing harm, but intentionally using the cheating. Yeah, you know, that's valid, I think. It's still hurtful and nasty. Oh, yeah. Oh, I was not happy. I was really hurt. I was very upset. it also turned out that she was physically abusive to the person that she was dating. So clearly that was like all bad all the time. And we were like, no, none of that. Like no. And I, reached out to the person who was not the actual ex to make sure that, that was fine and all that stuff and all that. So like, yeah. So like, it was like that was just super bad. And this was like my first relationship. Do you know what I mean? It's my first relationship. I had low self-esteem. Like, I stayed in that relationship longer than I should have. But like, once it all came out, like, we were done with that one. But like, it hurt a lot. But being hurt for me is not the same thing as abuse. What she was doing to her ex was abuse. Like, that was like on multiple, like, that was emotional abuse. It was bad. That was terrible. And I felt really bad for that person. And for me, like I had my heart broken. It was terrible. That was awful. You know what I mean? But that was different. Like, it felt different to me as an experience of that one. And so, you know what I mean? Like, it felt different to me. Yeah. Velpa's, the wonders of 19-year-olds. Been in this story. Oh yeah. You've been in that story when you're like, oh, this is my first relationship. I don't really know how relationships work exactly. I suppose maybe it's normal for people just to never support you. I don't know. I don't feel good about it. And then you're like, oh no, actually this is bad. And you learn. Yeah. It's sad that I've seen that whole maneuver play out multiple times with lesbian couples over the years. Yep. And this goes back to Volpez, one of my concerns about framing men as always abusers as women as never abusers, because then it makes it very difficult to recognize abuse in lesbian relationships, for example. And that's no good.
We need to act.
Enough, Zora. I'm not putting the torch to innocent people. Do you want to bring the board's cruisers and gunships down on us? Captain, apologies, but our situation grows dire.
What's up?
Our people talk of foolish endeavors.
Like what?
Do you bring?
I wanted to tell you about this really sort of thing that's really intense. It's about trans stuff and narratives of abuse. I really want to talk about this because it's really important, because this goes into this thing about the rise. Okay, so we're talking about the rise of TERF culture right now. Like TERF culture, which is, if you don't know, trans exclusionary radical feminists. They're on the rise at the moment. They're like, J.K. Rowling has sort of come out as a TERF. TERF wars, yeah. Where do TERFs come from? When did TERFs happen? TERFs arose in the 1970s. They arose out of sort of a splinter of radical feminists who were what we call cultural feminists. Then in the late 90s, 2010, you get the rise of online cheating. Oh yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. So, and please note, I'm not saying that cheating on people is good. I think cheating on people is really bad, and it really upsets me, right? I just think that there's a difference between somebody who, like, I don't know, cheats on you once and tells you and is really sorry about it, somebody who's like using somebody else to like emotionally abuse you. Like, those feel like separate things to me. Anyway, I wonder if there are any astronauts who are TERF. So AstroTERF, maybe. So like in the 1970s, there was a lot of like thinking about gender and all that, and there was a form of what is called by some people cultural feminism, which sort of comes at the idea that like that men and women are different, and that like and now it's being called gender critical feminism now, because they say they're critical of gender but don't believe them. That's actually kind of just not true. Yeah, cheating and lying about it for years is a choice, and that is very easily an abusive choice, right? So like, I'm not saying that cheating is not abuse. I'm just saying it's not always already abuse. Some cheating is definitely abuse, and some of it is also some things may not, like if somebody's cheating and lying about it, oh, it's bad. Like, that's really bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is bad. It's bad. Especially, and at some point in time, it might be worse if they're not practicing safe sex. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are things where it's not good. It's really bad, and it can definitely be abuse. Although we have to sort of look at the situation. I think part of the issue is that traditionally emotional abuse is seen as less than physical, yes. And I think the view, at least, is that women use emotions while men use physical violence, so men get viewed as abusers by default. But also women also use physical violence. I mean, and also men also use emotional violence, but whatever. And I think all those issues are being worked on, but it's not at the same pace. So culture it does. That's exactly true, Shvai. So you get this idea. So there's this sort of idea that women. Okay, so let me just give you some rhetoric, right? If we lived in a matriarchy, there would never be any wars, because women naturally are not violent. Men are violent, and you can just look at the statistics to prove it, but women are not violent. Women are peaceful by nature. They are nurturing, they are giving, they are loving. And if men were not in charge of things and women were in charge of things, there would be no war. There'd be no violence. There probably would be no crime, because women are like, you know, like they're like the earth, they're the moon. And they are, thank you. Krellin says, states of domestic abuse suggest men and women hit at roughly equal rates. That's right, that's exactly right. So our statistics are skewed by our imagination of who victims can be, which is a problem. Probably 30 to 40 minutes, Rissa. And so in this notion, right, of like this kind of, oh, this is such BS, right? But this idea somehow that like, you know, like your moon goddess woman, right? Yeah, I don't really think there's a difference between the methods of abuse between genders, just what the traditional view is, yes. And Weissman's like, bad joke, I know a lot of women. Yeah, but like in this notion, right, that there's this sort of this notion that got sort of created, and then it also ends up getting sort of tied into this idea that gender itself is a problem, that we need to sort of erase gender, that gender is an oppressive tool, like gender is an oppressive tool that we need to get rid of, but they don't mean it in a non-binary way. That's not how they mean it. And in this moment, you have trans women who are part of the feminist movement, and also they're trans men, but they were really weirded out by trans women. And they would say things like, trans women aren't women, they're men. And you can tell they're men because they have men's energy, right? They've got men's energy, which I'm like, what is that about? Like, I thought you weren't into gender, so like, what are you doing? Anyway, right? So there's this idea that somehow trans women are like, have men's energy, that they're really secretly men. Some of the writings, so there's some really awful writings, which I have read because that is my job. And they were like, you know, energy. And I'm gonna say this, and you just need to understand that this was one of the arguments. Javai's like, but I also think there's a value in how the balance is viewed, especially when it comes to how that topic overall gets viewed, men's energy, yeah, I know. And then also there was this viewpoint that trans women, I know, just like 70s, work with me, trans women are men who only transition so that they can infiltrate the women's movement and destroy it from the inside. They're Trojan horses. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. Like Menergy is sold in a black bottle with my car. Yes, it is. Right. So like trans women go through their entire process of transition just so that they can secretly infiltrate the women's movement and destroy it. Like this is like, I mean, like there's like a whole thing going on there, right? Do I get Menergy from grilling and working in my car? Yes, you do. They're men, women, horses, and wolves. Damn, right? Yeah, they're all these things, right? So it's this kind of like weird idea, and this becomes right. And now I'm going to note there were many radical feminists who thought this was stupid. And we're like, what are you talking about? What is wrong with you? Like, that's terrible. And they repudiated this, and they said this was terrible, and they thought that was awful, and they supported trans women, right? So I just want you to know, it's not all 70s. It's really important to note that. This was a narrow view. Have these people met men and how fragile masculinity is? No way any man that cared to do that would be able to even have that. Yeah, like, it's just not going to happen, right? But then also, they also think that it was like that men are so angry they can't have sex with lesbians that they become trans women so they can then have sex with lesbians. Like there's like a lot of stuff going on in this idea going on. And oh my God, there's one type in the UK and she was, yeah, right. And the thing is that this was a thing that was happening and it resulted in violence towards trans women, right? It was like a number of these women, Catherine McKinnon, some of the other people like Andrea Dworkin, they wrote a lot of, they consulted with the government. They helped craft legislation from the government that meant that trans people did not get health insurance until very recently. Trans women who were being abused couldn't go to women's shelters, like all sorts of exclusionary stuff. It was really, really bad. Then that kind of died down a bit, right? Once we moved to the third wave, but now it's 2020 and it is back. We're now in a space where TERFs are back and they are back with a vengeance. They're up there saying that trans women are really men, or maybe if they're not really men, but they're just not really women, and they shouldn't transition, and trans men are really women who've internalized homophobia, and they should just be lesbian. Like, it's all happening again right now. The same kind of rhetoric, transphobic rhetoric, that is based on the idea that women are weak and passive and always victims of male aggression, right? Women are peaceful but victims, men are aggressive and abusers. And this idea of the male abuser and the female victim as being how it's baked into the self, the body, is what allows them to say that trans women are all abusers, right? So there's this, and also the other thing that's happening right now is there are a bunch of like trans men who are like wanting to transition young, and they're framing those trans men as women who are victims of abuse of the state, right? That the state is forcing these young women to transition into men against their will, because women of course have no agency and they're victims all the time. So this particular rhetoric is happening all over the place, and it's being framed in terms of abuse. I do note that those studies of domestic violence do show that men cause visible, treatable injury more often than women, which is probably why I perceived it as a man problem. Yes. But also, it's also part of like, even in the Victorian era, right? There's like there are these sort of ideas that it plays into certain ideas, right? There are certain sexist notions about men and women that imagining women as always victims and men as always abusers feed into those notions, right? Because if like one of the classic sexist types from the Victorian era is that women are basically like fainting wallflowers that must be protected at all costs and put in the house, never get to leave the house, and like sit like they're so like this thing is like part of that whole complex, right? That ends up sort of framing that abuse. So those problems coupled with the woman as the maternal mother also keep men from keeping their children after divorce. Yes. They sound like they do not know shit what they talk about, and they're the type of feminists that were ever But they're there, and the thing is, we're in this moment. We're talking about everything as abuse. Where we start widening abuse so very broadly. It's tying into some of these things very often because it's sort of like broadening womanhood as victimhood and manness as abuse. And then the trans issue always reminds me how stupid the whole bathroom discourse around it is. I know there is so much more going on, but that one always gets me. Like, I know of no home with gendered bathrooms. And what's the issue with mixed bathrooms? Just have stalls, like most bathrooms. And we did have mixed bathrooms in the Army. Like when I was in the Army, I was in barracks with mixed bathrooms. It was fine, whatever. At least that was how it was in my high school. Yes, I don't remember people there complaining about mixed bathrooms. Yeah, but you know how people are. And that's why I got called a P for letting a woman hit me and throw shit at me. I should have just used my energy to stop it, I guess. Yeah, and that's a real problem. Like that's a real problem. Like that's make bathrooms unisex. Yes. So to get into this thing I want to say about abuse, and this is I think where I want us to be really careful about some stuff, and I feel quite strongly about this, and we have to think about it, right? If there are gunships, they sure didn't stop me from landing here. That one there.
They are armed all the same. All they need is a good reason, and war is one such reason.
So, Baron, it depends on when I was. Basic training, when I went to basic training, because I'm older than you are, basic training was segregated. I know they've stopped having segregated basic training, but my basic training was segregated. Then most of my barracks were not segregated, although we had women's latrines and men's latrines. But when I was in Korea, we were in these Quonset huts that were, a Quonset hut is sort of H-shaped. They're these little Quonset huts that shaped like an H with like the arms of the H and then this middle bar here. And in the arms of the H, there are 4 barracks rooms, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 8 total. And that bar in the middle is actually the latrine. So like one half is like bathroom stalls and the other half are showers. So, and then the doors are here. So like you walk in rooms, walk through, the walkway is like where the showers and latrines are, and then other rooms you can walk out. And that was like, that was just like, that was a mixed Quonset hut. So we just, that's what it was. Oh, is it? I thought they changed boot, but they didn't. Oh, all right. Not to even go into the heteronormative issue with gender bathrooms. Yes. So, is that what you're going on about? Going to war with someone?
We're out of time. We need food and ammunition. We need to hit Stellar Bay while we still have the manpower to do it.
What? Wait. You want to attack the city?
Yes, I know it's drastic, but it's clear that Sanjar will never cooperate. And if it's him or us, I choose us.
Wait. Are they really doing better than you are?
Doubtful. But we don't need much, and Sanjar isn't going to share.
Okay. Yeah, sure, but that really seems desperate.
It is. We are desperate. We're starving. My people are dying left and right.
I see. But listen, I've been to the printing press.
Excellent.
It's clear.
Did you find the Vanoys?
Yeah. They're lucky I got there in time, or else they would have become rapted on dinner.
Lucky indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're one step closer to bringing the truth to every man, woman, and child in Halcyon. This plan's brilliance is in its subtlety. For the time being, let us cease our activities on the tower, lest we bring premature attention upon us. I have much to do, articles to write, sermons to ponder. We live in such an exciting time. Let's talk later.
I don't like how this is going. I don't like how this is going.
To the wounded, but drop by the clinic when you can. I want a word.
Okay, sure. Also, I don't like how this is going, though. Side note. Okay, look. So I want to talk about the idea of lying to someone as abuse for a moment, right? That if you lie to someone, it's abuse. And they forget the bathrooms for special needs, and they have to be there alone. This made me think of the whole idea that men and women can't be just friends because sexual attraction, which I hate. So homosexuals obviously can only have friends of the opposite gender. Luckily, as an ace person, I can be friends with anyone, according to that logic. Although I don't know if they believe that. I don't know if those kind of people believe in aceness, because they seem a little sketchy that way, right?
I was a writer for MSI's product catalog.
So look,
It was my purpose to spread awareness of Saltuna in its various forms.
I know, Graham.
The certainty with which I spun among the other cogs in their machine stifled creativity and personal growth.
I understand. Hold on. So this idea that, all right, so there have been, to my knowledge, there might be more, but to my knowledge, 2 cases, 2 prosecutions of rape by deception. And that is I don't think they live in homosexual. I don't think they do either. Rape by deception being that if you lie to someone and they have sex with you, you have raped them, right? So somebody thinks something about you that's not true, or you tell them something that's not true about yourself or whatever, and then they have sex with you thinking this thing is true, but then it turns out that you lied to them, that you have raped them. And that's the concept called lie by deception. And I know of 2 prosecutions of lie by deception, rape by deception. And one is a case that happened in Israel, where there was a woman who was dating this guy. Well, here's the thing. The 2 prosecutions, the first one was there was a woman that she was dating this guy, was Israel, and they had been dating for some time, sleeping together, etc. You know, they had a relationship. And then it turns out that she found out that he was Muslim and not Jewish. And so then she prosecuted him for rape, because she said that she would have never gotten into a relationship with a Muslim person. And had she known that he was Muslim, that she never would have dated him or slept with him. And because she didn't know, he didn't tell her, that was rape. And so he went to prison for that. And then the other one, and this is the one where I really want to, this is the thing where I'm like, ooh, we have to think about what this means, right? Because we're in a moment now, people are like, oh yeah, if you lie, that's totally abuse, and you're an abuser. I was like, oh, hold on a second, right? And then the other one, of course, is a trans man in England, in the UK, who had a girlfriend, slept with a girlfriend, and then afterwards, later, she found out he was trans, and so for her that meant that he wasn't really a man, he was really a woman, so he was lying to her about who he was, and so he got put to prison as well. But the thing is, that idea that trans people are lying to you is one of the foundational cogs of transphobia. And it is one of the main reasons, one of the main justifications used to murder trans people. Right? It fundamentally says that the trans person is not who they say they are, right? So that if I say to you, hey everybody, I'm a guy, I'm lying to you because I'm not really a guy, I'm really a woman. But I'm not really a woman, I'm a guy. I am not lying to you when I tell you that I'm a guy. That is true. But society often, transphobes, does not believe that. They do not believe that I am who I say I am. They think that I am lying. I am not lying, I'm telling you the truth. And so therefore, if I don't tell you this thing that is not true, then I'm lying to you, and therefore I'm abusing you. And so there is a way in this moment of this sort of larger turf framework that trans people are basically always already framed as abusers. And so I feel like I am concerned with some of the ways in which our narratives of abuse also parallel some very sketchy things. And I just want us to be more aware and more thoughtful and more careful about that. And Javai, see, and so Javai, the thing is tricky is that I don't think in my understanding is he didn't actually lie to her. I just don't think it came up in their relationship. She just assumed that he was Jewish. She didn't ask. And then when she found out that he wasn't, then she got him arrested and put it in prison. And I'm like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like that's a problem. And so I you know what I mean? So I think we just have to really be very careful and thoughtful about how we're using the word abuse, what we're using it for, what we're doing with it. What made you see the eternal light? And I think we have to be really careful.
Later, after Sanjar had taken over, as he drifted closer to the corporate regime, I drifted further from it. I'd known a little about philosophism on the fringes of society, and as I learned more, I found that I was already on the path without even knowing. The freedom it teaches is the same freedom that I desire. Why have you come?
Oh, I'm going to be going now. Yeah, Jabai says, yeah, deception can be abusive, but lying doesn't mean abuse in all cases. And also, sometimes things are not lies, right? Like, this is where we get into some of these, like, if I see you and you're like, how does my hair look? I'm like, oh, it looks fine. But, like, in my inside, I don't really think it looks all that fine. Am I now abusing you? Like, we have to, like, be careful a little bit. Crap, once again, I wish I could stay around for the conversation, but I get to go through. Oh, don't worry, we'll see you. Yes, and we're not going to be staying around long. We've got like maybe like 15, 20 minutes. I mean, yeah, not saying anything about that specific scenario. I can just see the logic. Yeah, and I just think we have to be really careful. And I think about this because at the moment we're in a space, and this is where I think about this a lot, right? At the moment, we're in a space where the current rhetoric involves saying, thank you for being here, Kira, pardon me, that if lying is abuse, this is their current rhetoric, that lying to someone is abuse. I wonder if the judge had reversed in that Israeli case where the verdict would have been the same. I bet it wouldn't have been, Krellin. I mean, I cannot 100% say, but I bet it wouldn't have been. And the reason why is because a lot of these sort of larger politics are all about the fragility of women's sexuality. Like women's sexuality is so like fragile. And like men are abusers. So if it had been swapped, I don't think so. I don't think so, actually. I don't think that would have happened. Right. Yeah. So, I see why, Shield. And one of the things I think about, though, is that, and this is why I get worried, is that we're now getting to the space where, like, if you lie to someone, lying to someone is abuse. And the thing that makes me very uncomfortable with that is that the fundamental transphobic logic is that all trans people are liars. That is, that's the fundamental logic of transphobia. Is that fundamentally people think that trans people are liars. Always already liars, always liars. And if lying to someone makes you an abuser, that propagates the idea that all trans people are abusers, which goes into that kind of turfy logic that all trans people are rapists and all trans people are abusers and liars, and then it's kind of okay to kill them. And I'm like, ho, 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 no, you know what I mean? And so I have some concern about
Hey, Captain.
a kind of a.
We gotta keep it hush hush.
Oh.
You know about what happened here, right? The history of Amber Heights?
You're talking about the massacre. Back when the corps were pulling out, pirates raided the place and killed the MSI bigwigs living here.
Right. Common belief is that the pirates fled to an old relay station that had already been abandoned, but nobody could find them. The station's locked up, but one of my people found an old data cartridge in a nearby rat nest. It's mostly corrupted, but I pulled a couple codes off of it.
Mm-hmm.
One is the code to the Amber Heights gate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognize the other, but it's similar. I bet it opens a door.
Okay. Scabbing next is, I think, something that's really important. I want us to think about this, and this is something I think we really need to work on. If this is one thing I would like to give the world, this is a thing. Scabbing Axe says, men are always trying to take something from women the way a lot of people see things, right? So I want to come back to that for a moment, because this is really, really important. This is really important. If there's one thing I would like for liberation, I want to start talking about that. Javai says, I think the trend is to try to make other kinds of abuse than the normal ones be seen as abuse, so people think anything someone sees as abuse is valid, because that is what the current movement is about. And the thing is, the problem is that we are also in a movement where people do not believe people when they're being abused, right? People say, I'm being abused, people are like, oh no, you weren't, and people minimize that, and so that's really bad. The fact that we're not believing people who are being abused is a real problem, and like, there's a move to try to correct that, but we don't believe everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, only believe some people, and we have to like worry about that. So here's what I would say, and this is really, really important. Our society currently is set up to believe that sex is something that is a loss gain situation. Somebody gets something, somebody gives up something. And you can see, and generally speaking, men get things when they have sex. They get some, men get some, and women give it up. So men take from women, women give things up. And in this idea, men are made better by getting some. They're made bigger. They get some, so they're bigger now. And women are diminished by giving something up, right? They lose something of themselves. They lose their virginity. Women lose things by having sex. Men gain things by having sex. This is a super unhealthy way of thinking about sex. It's super unhealthy. It's really toxic. And I'm going to point out that both men and women think this. This is not a thing that men think only and women don't think this. This is how we're all taught to think about sex. And that men take virginity, women give it. That's where slut shaming comes in. Yes. I think the Jewish case would be different in reverse genders, because the whole hereditary part of Jewish is that, yes. But also because men historically are allowed to kind of have sex with whoever they want to, right? Like, when it comes to like, when you think about like racial purity rhetoric, in the history of like kind of like racial purity rhetoric, it's fine for men to have sex with others, but it's not fine with women to have sex with others. It's okay for men to go out and have sex with whoever they want to, because whatever, but it's not okay because that's like part of like some kind of weird grossness. It's why parents just tell their daughters, you're not dating till you're 30, while they encourage their sons to date. Yes. And you have to think about what this means. What this means when you think that having sex is a loss for you, that you have to give up something in order to have it, or that you gain something by having it. That means that connection between those two people is not going to be an equal one. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's fundamentally something problematic about a relationship where somebody's gaining something and somebody's losing something when they have an intimate moment. I do not believe that is how sex has to be or necessarily is. I do not think that that's how sex fundamentally works. I don't think that somebody loses something and somebody gains something when you have sex with someone. I think that you can have sex with somebody and you both gain. It's great. Yay! Like, for me, sex is not like a cake that you pass off to somebody. Like, sex is like having jazz, or it's dancing. You're dancing with somebody. You're both having a good time. That's great. Nobody is like worse because they had the sex, or better because they had the sex. You're having sex together. It's great. But as long as sex is framed that way, then what follows is notions of worth and power that are super, super unhealthy. Super unhealthy. Having jazz is what I'm calling sex from now on. Yeah, have cake is delicious. But see, here's the thing, Barantor. We can both have cake. We can have a cake. We can cut multiple slices. We both have slices of cake. We're eating cake, having jazz, and dancing. And like, that's the best time, right? And in the best case, I approve of the sex equals dance analogy, right? Like, that's great. Well, sex doesn't have to be equal. It can be. But we have to think about this philosophically for a moment, if you don't mind. And I want to tell you a story. I eat my cake alone. More cake for me. Hey, delicious. I want to tell you a story, and I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it. This is a story I'm going to give you because I want you to think about it. I was in the Army, and I came home on leave. It was after my first year, after I did all my training. Some people do not want unequal sex, but that gets back to consent. Some people do want the unequal sex, but yes, it gets back to consent. But part of it is like not about wanting or not wanting. It's about thinking that's just how it is and there's no other option. Do you know what I mean? So here's my story. I had finished my first year of training. I come back home on leave and I visit my friends from high school. And we're all hanging out together, my high school friends. And these friends, this particular group, they're all women. So there are 3 of them. And one of my friends, she had just come back from being abroad. This might have been after my second year, to be honest, actually, because she wouldn't have gone abroad until her first year. So it was probably after my second year, probably when I came back from Korea, probably. And so she was talking about her time abroad. She went to England and she was telling us about her time in England. And she was like, oh my gosh, I was in England and all the English guys were so hot. They had these hot accents. I had so much sex. I had sex with all these hot British dudes. I was like, you're a hot British dude, I'm having sex with you. You're a hot British dude, I'm having sex with you. And so she was telling about all these hot British dudes that she was having sex with. And the other 2 women were horrified. And they said to her, that is so awful. Those men were using you for sex. And she said, no, I was using them for sex, right? Like like they were hot dudes. I wanted to have sex with them. I had sex with them. Like it was fine. And these 2 other women, they were like, no, what you don't understand is that they degraded you. You were basically abused and degraded by those men who were only using you for sex and only saw you as a piece of meat. And let's just point out, none of us knew these guys at all. We were not in England with her. We don't know what that situation was like at all. But for them, they could only see sex as something that was diminishing for women. And so they were trying to convince her that the experience that she had, having a lot of sex as a person who was probably 20 in England, having a great time, was degrading to her because she was a woman and because they were men and because always already any kind of sex act between men and women has got to be something diminishing for women. And they wanted her to experience what she had as a form of abuse. She did not. She was like, I had a great time. I did what I wanted. And she's like, and actually, I don't actually even really care what they thought about me. And I remember thinking, first off, we don't know what these men were thinking. For all we know that she left a string of broken hearts behind her. We don't know. But let's say that some of those guys only saw her as a piece of meat. Let's say that might be possible. She was clearly only seeing some of those guys as a piece of meat, whatever. But why is that random guy that we don't even know, why is his perception of that sexual encounter, why is his perception more relevant than her perception? Like, if he only sees her as a piece of meat, let's say, we don't know if that's true, but if she did not perceive it that way, if she's like, I had a great time, why does he get to define that sexual encounter? And first off, let's point out, he wasn't even defining it. It was my friends, these 2 girlfriends of mine, who were defining what that was, because they weren't like, we don't even know. And I remember being very distressed at this moment where they spent so much time trying to convince her that she had lost something, that she was diminished, that these theoretical men we don't know didn't respect her and therefore it was a disrespectful situation. And that was just not what she experienced at all. And I was like, this is really unhealthy. I was like, this is really unhealthy. And I'm glad I'm not involved in any of that business right now. Like, that is not a thing I want to have any, like, that's not what I want, you know? And I think we need to think about that. I think we need to think about the ways in which we, how we imagine relationships between people, how that impacts how we experience things. And this is what, going back to the 1970s, this is what consciousness raising was about. Consciousness raising was about trying to undo these thought patterns that are not healthy for us, you know? Well, as random Twitch viewer, hey, cool in Outer World streams. Oh my God, what did I walk into? All this sex and feminist talk. We're talking about sex. I'm demonetized. Verum Lumen. At work one day, when I was still went somewhere to work, I was sexually harassed. It was pretty awful. My boss and the people involved were amazing in the way they handled it, by the way. Good. I was well cared for. However, when I went back from lunch to my office and told someone there what happened, the ladies mostly told me I should have been glad for the attention. And I'll know the value of such thing was older. I was so gobsmacked that seemingly everyone said that. Verum, that is terrible. And this is how women also propagate the patriarchy. The patriarchy is not maintained only by men. The patriarchy is maintained by men, women, non-binary people. All sorts of people propagate the patriarchy, and that is a perfect example of that moment. That is awful. Scabby Neck, they saw you as a piece of meat while she's talking about how all these hot these guys were. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Javai's like, I mean, yeah, the discourse around it needs to change. I just don't think it should be 100% sex is equal because that can be used harmfully. Tell me more about that. From the way you said how she talked about it, it really sounded like she was using it for sex and saw them as only meat. Yeah, and they were fine with that. They didn't feel bad about it. Apparently, those guys were like, you want to have sex with me because you think I'm hot? Great, and then they had sex. And again, this is the idea that I don't think all use is abuse. If somebody consents, people are like, you want to use me for sex? I'm cool with that. Then that's not abuse. Like, you're using them for sex, but they're cool with it, so then we're fine, right? Right? I expected these women I had worked with years. Yeah, sounds like both these guys used each other for sex. Yes, they did. I'm sorry your coworkers responded that way. Yeah, it's really terrible. I'm very lucky my boss is amazing. The other manager, yeah. Something about getting a good save point. Yes. I want to find out about people.
I know it's a long shot, but if we miss something there, if you can get into that station, maybe we can get some answers.
Okay. And the Amber Heights gate?
Right. The access codes to Amber Heights.
Mm-hmm.
What gets me is, if this belonged to the pirates, that means they knew someone there. If someone gave them the gate code, all those deaths, Captain, all that blood is on their hands.
Yeah, I found out I have a cool Eberron one-shot coming. Oh, very nice. I like Eberron. And I think like saying sex is good for everyone sounds to me like it could be easily used for pressure for sex. No, I didn't say good for everyone. That's not what I said. That's different. And for me, at least, as an ace, that will never really be the case for me. Like, sex just doesn't exist for me that way. I didn't say that sex was good for everyone. That's different. What I said was that sex is not necessarily unequal. Like, it's not necessarily, like, it is not a fundamentally unequal thing wherein one person is losing something and one person is gaining something through the act of sex. That is not, I do not think that is a fundamental nature for sex. I think that you can, and we're talking about consensual relationships. If two people both consent to sex, I do not think that basically somebody just loses somebody. Like, I was like, oh, I want to have sex with you, and now I'm a worse person because of it, right? Like, I don't think that's, no. But that's not to say that sex is good. Some people don't like sex, so they don't want to have sex. It's not interesting for them. That's like, if you don't want to don't have sex if you don't want to have sex. And if you are, and don't have sex when you don't have sex when you don't want to have sex. Don't have sex when you don't want to have sex. That's really, and don't make anyone have sex if they don't want to have sex. That's like a fundamental ground point. Hey Prax, how are you doing? Yes. Origami says, my ex-husband was probably not having a good time for most of the time we were together because he was deeply in the closet. When I found out, I did not feel good about it. But also, I don't know what I could have done differently because he kept it secret for years. Yeah. I always reference the best points. Right, we're like talking about how we're talking about how people think of sex as being something that is given and taken, like men take it and women give it. And so therefore women become diminished and men become emboldened, and that's like a really unhealthy way to think about sex. That like you have to feel bad if you have it, if you're a woman, and you have to feel good, and like maybe, and that means that men can't say no, right? Like in that model, men are not expected to be able to say no to sex because men are always like made better by having sex, so men should always want to have sex even if they don't, and women should always feel bad about wanting to have sex even if they like it. So like the whole model, that predator prey model of sex is super unhealthy. People should be able to say no if they don't want to have sex. They should be able to say yes if they do want to have sex. I just feel like that seems, also, why are we keeping this to ourselves?
Graham isn't fond of talking about the history here. He had friends who worked here. The massacre hit him pretty hard. You know him. Live and let live and all that. I don't want to burden him right now, especially if this ends up being a dead end.
I agree that it can be equal and should be. Just, I think, pushing the idea that sex is something both parties involved can essentially gain from can be used by other parties, not the fossil to mean that. But what you're talking about is somebody pressuring somebody to have sex when they don't want to, right? Yes. Horror movies. We went from horror movies to cheating to feminism to sex. people have used sex, the idea of sex positivity, to pressure people to have sex when they didn't want to. That happened in the 60s. Free love, the sexual revolution. The sexual revolution was mostly men pressuring women to have sex when they didn't want to. That's mostly what that was. There was like a lot of women who were like, I don't want to have sex with you, and they're like, well, that's because you're a square. You know what I mean? And like, if you were hip, you'd have sex with me. And so a lot of women were pressured to have sex when they didn't want to. But also, like, I'm going to say, a lot of men are bad at sex. So a lot of women are not really getting a lot out of that sex with men because the men aren't good at it. So there are a lot of reasons why women, like, I don't know if you know this, people, universe. Did you know that about a third of all women have never had an orgasm? And how the levels of orgasmicness for women vary based on educational attainment and race. So if you are a woman who has a bachelor's degree, you're much more likely to have an orgasm than if you're a woman who's not graduated from high school. Like, rates for women who've not graduated from high school are really bad for having orgasms. But women who've graduated college, they're pretty decent. So a lot of women are not having good sex, is what I'm trying to tell you. And it can be dangerous. There are people who have bad attitudes about it. It's oftentimes not fulfilling. And so, like, then maybe you're not really interested in it because it's actually not giving you anything. You're not getting much out of it if the sex is super bad. And you're like, wow, this is not great. So I'm just saying that there's like a lot of complicated things going on in there. Trooper says, the next time my other uncle gets all into my business when I get drunk to deal with him, I will just tell him to zip it and stop feeding the patriarchy because he's not expecting that coming from me. Good. Yeah, no, we went from Crouching Hidden Dragon to horror movies to other countries to feminism to sex. That is fair. Prax, it's all your fault. There's a great scene about that in Doom Patrol where a couple threw a party and halfway through the one found out the party was an orgy. Okay, go to the relay station, see if the code's useful. Anything else?
Just a warning. The area's infested with mantisaurs. I'd send some help, but we're, preparing for war.
Right, I'm on it.
Appreciate it.
It's fine.
Here's the code. If it works, bring back anything you find.
Yeah.
Supplies are best, but information's good too.
Mm-hmm.
If someone was behind the Amber Heights massacre,
Mm-hmm.
it'd give a lot of people around here some closure to find out who and string them up. Good luck. Watch out for the Taros.
That's a little scary, but all right. I didn't mean to say that you said anything wrong, more just that I think it's important to note that sex isn't always positive. But I will say, well, I mean, non-consensual sex is not positive, right? Is there real research on? Yes, there is. There's actually quite a lot of research on bad sex. Actually, there is. Yeah, Zolfa's like, yep, there's a lot of it. I meant more to add another angle to it. Oh, yeah. Totally, I get that, Javai. But I'll also note that even under the old model, people still get pressured for sex. People are pressured for sex under any model. If you go into like the predator prey model, then it's just, I'm a predator, so I'm going to pressure you to have sex. Or you're a guy, you're supposed to want it all the time, so you should, like, you can, or actually it's your duty. That was another one, that like it's your duty to have sex whether you want to or not. So even if it's not good for you, that was another one, that was a big one. Even if it's not good for you to, like, if you do not enjoy it and you do not like it and you do not want to have it, it is your duty to have sex, and so you must have it anyway. So like there are a lot of different ways to pressure people to have sex if they don't want to. And we should not be pressuring people to have sex if they don't want to. Like, under no rhetoric should that be happening. People, that's it. Right? Like and I'm saying this like it's like the most obvious statement. I just wish that people, like, why can't we? Fully, I don't think the current model is a better way. And the thing is, the model that you're happy about was being used also, right? Like the one that I'm talking about, right? The no, that's not what I want. Map. Here. Fast travel. We're just gonna zoom over there. Like you, because basically somebody who wants to pressure someone to have sex can use any model to do so, right? Any model any model that we're under, somebody can use it to pressure someone to have sex. I think the difference is, wait, I saw the movie All Predators Should Self-Destruct. It's one of their basic functions. And frankly, I feel a lot of in-real-life predators aren't taking that part seriously. We note it. My business partner's wife is a therapist and a sex therapy specialist. Oh, who specializes in the kink community. Oh, that's really cool, Volpez. That's cool. Pretty much to take your idea, but take it like 90% of the way instead of 100%. I mean, Sometimes it's true. I think the thing is that I'm gonna go. Here's the difference, Javai. For me, the ideology, I think, is 100% true. That there's nothing inherent to the act itself, bad or unequal about sex. I do not think that there is anything inherent in the sex act that makes somebody better or worse for having done it. In and of itself as a thing. I do not think that is true. I think that it can be used in unequal ways. I think it can be used to harm people. I think it can be used for abuse. In the same way that conversations can be used for, like, lots of things can be used for abuse. But I do not think that fundamentally at its core, having physical contact with somebody who also wants to have physical contact with you is inherently abusive. Now, some people do think that. Catherine McKinnon thinks that. Also does Andrea Dworkin. They both think that sex between men and women is inherently abusive, and there's no way around that. I just don't think that's true. But it can be used that way. It can be used in an abusive way, as many things can be used. Yeah, agreed. I think it was some minor detail in what you said. I don't remember what that stuck out as not fully right for me. Oh, that's fair and good. I'm glad that Javai, I'm glad you brought it up because it leads us to a really good conversation, and I think that's important. Yes. So I think that is actually very good. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for retrieving the bolt. It's every bit as complex as I'd heard, but I'm up to the challenge.
I need to get them to not have a war.
What can I do for you?
I need the MSI to stop broadcasting. You're jamming the Devil's Speak station.
As rigid as the old executive committee. Why, we've hardly been able to get a clear message out until recently.
When Graham finally shut up.
It isn't easy keeping a town like Stellar Bay afloat, especially without the board's backing. We need that frequency to reach our trading partners.
Yeah, there must be another way for you to do business.
Indeed. That's why it's imperative that MSI be reinstated onto the board. If we can find proof that one of the companies on the board is also active on Monarch, that'll give me all the leverage I need.
Fine, but then you're stopping those broadcasts.
You have my word.
Okay, good. And so here's the thing, right? About Javai, back into this topic. Here's why I think this idea of sex as like gain and loss is problematic as a concept, is because, so first off, base level, pressuring people for sex is bad, right? Base level. But that mindset of gain and loss means that when two people consent to have sex with each other, they want to have sex with each other for whatever reason it is, either for a night or for their lives, whatever that is. They want to, they're into it, they're excited about it. This is all non-pressured, it's all open, it's all exciting. But if they both believe this about sex, if they both believe fundamentally that her giving it up diminishes her and him getting some makes him bigger, better, faster, more, even if they want to have sex with each other, that's where shame comes in, right? So like shaming ends up happening. And negative self-thoughts, you start thinking badly about yourself, or you start thinking good things about yourself in ways you probably shouldn't, right? So like that mindset can poison what would otherwise be like a pleasant encounter. Just like with my friend who was in England, who was having lots of pleasant encounters with lots of hot British dudes that she was having lots of sex with, and she was having a great time, but then her friends wanted to make those encounters bad for her. They wanted to make those encounters abusive because they could not see sex in any way other than a form of abuse, basically. And that's, that makes me really sad. Like, I think that's like, that becomes problematic. Oh yeah, getting used to the schedule. Prax, I'm gonna be on there myself real soon. So what do I need to do right now? I mean, I need to get off the game, but what's the next space? I want to put myself, yeah, okay, I need to complete the Bolt quest, errors unseen, the commuter, pay for the printer. Okay, I need to stop the economy. Okay, well, how do I need to find that somebody else is operating on Monarch. How am I going to do that? And it also pressures people to have sex when they don't want to. I think it was the way you said it was implied a net positive of sex instead of the current gain and loss, which implies unless you add regulations that you should have sex. Not with anyone, not with everyone, do it consensually, but you should have sex because the act of sex is a net positive. Oh, so pretty much want to say that I'm not sure. I want to move 100% to sex as a net positive because it sounds like it could be bad for ace people. I see what you're saying. What I would say is that sex can be a great experience if you like having sex, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but if you don't want to have sex, like having sex if you don't want to have sex is not a positive thing. That is a bad thing. But sex in and of itself is just, like, some people don't like to dance. Like, if you're dancing with somebody and it's like, oh, that's great, you're having a great time dancing with people, playing the jazz with people, that's great, you like it, then it can be a great thing. It can be a positive thing if you like it. If you don't like it, you should not do it because it's not going to be great. It's not going to be great at all. I did like a bunch of stuff. How do people who view sex as transactional square that with being against legalized prostitution? Scabbynack, that is a great question. That's a great question. But I will tell you what, McKinnon and Dworkin think that sex is transactional, and they're very anti sex work. They're anti-sex work big time. So it clearly works out well in some ways to do that together. Look, I don't. Where do I go next? Oh, maybe I stay in here? Maybe? Something is suspicious here. Some people don't like chocolate. Some people don't, and that's totally fair. Totally fair. I am feeling like something's weird here. Heresy. I don't like dark chocolate. I don't like dark chocolate. Where do you cash in the code? I've got to go to Amber Heights, but I feel like that's different. Okay, wait. So maybe I need to talk to more people? Yes. Here, we'll do that. Again, I don't think that's what you personally. It's just what I heard in your statement. No, that's fair. So pretty much I agree with some further question. Yes, totally. And I thank you for that clarification. They frame as an unequal exchange because the one doesn't really have any agents in the transaction. Yes. Also, I don't want to point guns at you. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. That's an opinion. It's wrong, but it's an opinion.
Be careful with your new friends in Amber Heights. They're not the most reliable types.
Yeah.
Anyway, what can I do for you?
I think I'm done with that. So, but I need to.
You should know you're getting excellent reviews from across the company.
Oh, thanks.
What can I do for you?
How do I solve this problem, like Maria?
Well, I see you've had a sobering effect on our friend Nyoka.
Sir, please stop.
Forgive me,
Yeah, I'm looking for other companies, PH.
Anyway?
Yes.
What can I...
Yes, I am, PH. So I've got to prove that there are other companies operating here. That's like the next stop. But my little pointer points back to him. So that's the Maria Solutions, the airlock. There's a town room. Oh, yeah, there is. Yes, there is. And I think I've been there, though. Like, wasn't I already there? Like, wasn't I, like, I feel like I was there. How do you catch a movement? Yes. Yeah, I've spoken with them. Like, we were like, it was Fallbrook, right? Didn't we like just chat with them and we were hanging out? So, right? Yeah, it's the Fallbrook people. Like that, I feel like we were totally chatting with them. But the code is for something different. Also, by the way, Javai, going on this about aceness for a moment, I think that this is also one of the problems of the transactional model of sex, wherein you lose something or you gain something, is that in that model, having sex can gain you things. And so that they're like, especially if you are seen as a man, right? I think that the transactional model that we have makes it very difficult for ace men to be seen as valid, right? Because in that model, men are supposed to... Is this it? Is this it? I think it is. I think it is. So I think about the ways in which aceness is very, very difficult for people who are seen as men, because the transactional model says that they are always getting something, like you get something from it, and I think that makes it very difficult. I think that aromantic women have an especially hard time because of the ways in which women are sort of always assumed to be romantic focused. So like I think there are different ways in which like asexuality or aromanticism hits the different genders differently because of our stereotypes about gender. Javi says, I'm not sure how much I can say about sex work, as for me, sex lacks a lot of the meaning it has for other people. So I'm pretty much for sex work if you're into it, assuming done well and not trafficking and all that. But I'm sure sex means other things to other people, which could change the matter a lot. Yeah. And yeah, the current model is real bad for ace people of both gender for different reasons. Yeah. And that's because like the model is sort of what's the word? Asymmetrical. So then it hits people in these different ways that are like, not great. So I apparently just need...
Remember, Sublight is not responsible
evidence
for any loss of property incurred while patrons are on Fallbrook property.
Then I'm going, by the way. We're almost done.
I am here to anticipate and facilitate your need.
No, I just need, but like, I'm here. Like, how do I not have evidence? I've been all over this place. People. Well, can I just take a photograph? Wizard says, transactional models are reliant on there being no emergent qualities to the exchange goods, and to an extent, a market value is fixed in a given time. Also, this doesn't even work to explain the actual economic transactions. Yes. Yes. Hello?
Got the goods? Because I know you wouldn't be wasting my time otherwise. Wink. Hit me. I wouldn't even hit back.
Lily asked me to meet with Catherine Malin.
Wow. You're either an extremely important person or slated for a slow and torturous death. I do hope it's the former. Either way, you'll find Miss Catherine Malin straight back in Malin's House of Hospitality.
What was I doing for you again?
Pure and simple, it's like this. I run our drug delivery
right.
service. Recently, I had the genius idea to cut costs in half by swapping our autoloaders with faster, cheaper sprats. Only problem is my sprat carriers ain't arrived from their latest run.
Fair.
You're retrieving the lost goods from me.
Right.
In return, I'm paying you a % of the profit.
That's great. I'm into it.
Sure it is. Wink.
Yeah. I'm gonna like here. Hey, Sublight. How do I look? I don't want to go yet because I feel like getting evidence that Sublight is here should be a super easy no-brainer.
Walking rung leech.
So I just feel like I should be able to get this in like 5 minutes and then walk out. Like I don't see how that should not be an easy thing to do, in my opinion. Javi says, I also know that religions typically against sex is real bad for ace people, as you're generally meant to marry and build a family for those traditions, meaning lots of sex in set circumstances. Yeah. And not being able not to. Like maybe you just don't want to do that. Like that's not what you... Although, side note, weirdly enough, a number of religions did actually have spaces for who we might think of as ace people, but that was often in the clergy. So that's like they're...
Don't suppose I could just ask you to scram.
No, that's fine. So like there is a space, like there has been historically a space for people who we would now identify as ace people in many religious traditions as clergy. So like that there was like a space there. Maybe you don't want to be clergy, but you know, people didn't often get to choose their careers either back in the day, so that was
so long as you don't mind being in her debt.
a bit tricky.
With her,
Or monastics, yep.
gun and the other on my bit cartridge.
Yep. like clergy monastics. I'm gonna talk to you and hope it'll work out. I had everyone assume I want children. Tiny humans are okay if someone else is the birthing. I don't want to get a kiddo for the nanny. My grand had 16 brothers and sisters, Javai. I always think of Groucho Marx seeing a fan who had 12 children come in. Geez, lady, I like my cigar, but I take it out of my mouth occasionally. Oh, Groucho.
How's Clive? I do hope you gave him my regards.
Yeah. Feudal classicism. Yep. Classism.
Sure.
Cinder said you know something about a corporation operating in secret on Monarch?
Might be I know something about it. Might be someone hired my crew to blind drop supplies on the northern bridge. Might be they sure as shit weren't pirates.
Oh.
Now that I consider it, I ain't heard from my delivery team in far too long. Find them for me, and I'll pay you handsomely.
You know what? I don't have light 100% because I'm a sad person, so I'll just check it out.
And I'll thank you kindly for it.
All right, that's it. I'm going. We're leaving. I just feel like we did great stuff. We just did great work. We advanced lots of plot in really amazing ways.
There's a woman who knows what she wants.
Right?
I like her.
That depends. Monastics are very relevant in Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah, so I think also aceness is really interesting because ace identity is actually relatively new. As an identity, like an identity, there have always been people who are ace, but as an identity, it's relatively new. And I think that's really fascinating. In the same way that a bunch of things are relatively newer identities. Wait, where do I have to go? Where am I going? The Air Force has 2 aces for a while now. So progressive. Because there are many things, like, people have always been things, but whether or not that was an identity is different, right? Like, you could always have people who did X, Y, and Z, but whether or not it became an identity is interesting, because sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. And by the way, what... And please note, when I say that it's only been an identity relatively recently, that doesn't mean that it hasn't always been there, right? That the feelings or behavior haven't always been there. Just whether or not you think of it as being something that then becomes something that you base your identity around is different. Like, we didn't actually even, like, I was talking to Prax about this. We didn't have sexual identities until just a couple hundred years ago, like 19th century. People didn't have sexual identities. They had sexual activities, but that's not the same thing as a sexual identity. And then what those sexual identities were has changed and how we understood them. We actually having gender identities is actually relatively new as well, which doesn't mean that, like, it's just like, it's about how we sort of understand things. And also I will say that genderqueer people in the 90s are not the same identity as non-binary people today. They actually don't do the same thing. They're not conceived of in the same way. So like, I knew a bunch of people who were genderqueer and genderfuckers, pardon my language, that's what they were called, in the 90s, but that's not the same as non-binary people today. That they're actually different identities that don't work the same. People might sort of think they're all the same, but they're actually a little bit different.
Somebody's watching me.
I always feel that somebody's watching me, and I have no privacy. Whoa, I always feel that somebody's watching me. Tell me, is it just a dream? Ba-ba-ba-bow. Thank you for that follow, Lone Cool. Welcome in. We're just talking about, like, deep philosophy, but also, seriously, I don't even know. Oh, hey, look. One thing you need to know about me, Lone Ku, is that there are always excuses for me to sing. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They're always. Also, I just want to know what my next, like, I've got like a, it's fine. I'm not sure I view it as my identity, although being able to say I'm ace is pretty, but when you say I'm ace, that is an identity. It's an identity term. It's just part of what I am. Like, figuring out didn't mean much to me. Just like, I guess that's the word. Like, I don't view myself as in the closet despite not telling lots of people. It's just part of me, like liking role-playing and famous. But see, actually this becomes a thing. So for example, let's go back before the 1970s when like there was like a really important asexual manifesto that's happened in the 1970s. You would understand it a little bit differently. What ace meant in the 1970s was different from what it meant now. Actually quite different. Actually very, very different. In this, there was like some asexual manifestos in the 70s, but at that moment, asexuality was about choices, not about feelings. So that it would be a choice to be asexual, right? That you would choose to not have sex. And that is a choice, a political choice, an important political choice. And that choice is actually not related to your feelings, but it's an important political choice to sort of, to do that. So like, that's a very different way of thinking about asexuality than today. But there are people who would be what we would think of as asexual, but they would never say I'm ace. What they would say is, oh, I'm heterosexual or I'm homosexual. I'm just not into sex. But it's not an identity with a label, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just not into it. But it wouldn't be a, you know, or like, you know, I don't like it that much, or like sometimes whatever, but it wouldn't be thought of as a thing that you would label yourself as. The label you would have is probably bi, homo, hetero, right? Like that would be your label, your sexuality label. Ace wouldn't be the label. That would be like a, oh yeah, I'm just not, you know, I'm not into it, because the way that we think about it would have been different at that time. But now it's different. Now that people are like, oh yeah, no, I'm ace. And then we get to the next step, which is like our current moment, where, oh, frigid, right? Yeah, yes. But now frigid, PH is like, don't forget frigid. Frigid wasn't an identity, it was a malady that needed to be cured, right? So that becomes then, right, like that becomes different. Yeah, no, I'm doing. Okay, wait, do my checkbook, yes. Eat food, yes. Go to bed by 2 a.m., yes. And I have a stream tomorrow. The 70s were very sexualized, which is why asexuality became a political space, right? Because of how sexualized the 70s were, people were like, no, we are going to reject sex as like a political identity. And so there's a big asexual manifesto that came out in the 70s, and it was a reaction to the hypersexuality of the 70s. And so, but that's not how we think of asexuality now, right? We actually think about it differently than that moment. So, you know, yes. Beggars can't be choosers was always the fun. Oh, right. Oh, I hate that one. All right, so we're gonna, oh, here, you know what we're gonna do? Since I don't know what we're doing right now, I'm going to just save at this moment. And saving, we saved, it's really good. Overwrite the save. And then we're gonna come here because we're gonna head out for the time. But that is not being ace, that's being a stinker. That's not what being ace means today, but that doesn't mean that's not what it meant then. Because how we understand these labels are very different. They've changed quite a lot over time, right? What we think that even means is different. And like, I think it's important to recognize that like how we understand these labels have changed. You're going to check on a delivery for Fallbrook, but where is it? If sex is forbidden, no point saying you aren't into sex, because that was the rule. Yes, when sex becomes a rule, you have to note that you don't fit that model. Yes. So, right, so all of a sudden, these things sort of shift around. So I've got to check on the delivery for Fallbrook. I'm going to work out how that, we're going to talk about it next Saturday, and we'll work it out. But then also, I think about, and now we have like more of a discussion of the split sexuality model, right? So splitting sexuality, sexual attraction from romantic attraction. Wait, are you saying how we view sex and gender as a social construct? Yes, I am. Right, so but now we have this idea of the split attraction model, right? So you can be X sexual and Y romantic in different ways. And also currently, the current rhetoric is that if you fall under this split attraction model, you are queer. So a person who is heterosexual but demi-romantic would be technically considered queer by our the current way that our current vibe is talking about things. So like a man who is heterosexual aromantic would be considered queer by a bunch of people. So a dude who only wants to bang chicks but doesn't want to have relationships with them is queer. Right. Also then by that model, a woman who is asexual heteroromantic who wants to get married and have romance. Oh, heteroromantic demisexual. So a woman who wants to get married to guys but is like whatever about like will have sex with a guy when she's in a relationship only with them is also now queer, right? So we have now worked our models to a point where almost everyone is queer now. There are very few people who are not queer in some model, in some way. Like James Bond is queer. Basically almost everyone is queer under the current ways in which we're understanding sexuality and attraction. Now, not everybody believes that, but in the kind of like, and some people I think do not follow through their argument process. They're like, this is what queer means. I was like, okay, but if it means that, then actually that means also everybody. And then they don't want that, but like, you know, I'm just saying that like in the kind of current popular, if everyone is queer, is anyone queer? That's a good question. That's a very good question, Krellin. That's a good question that we should probably talk about. To be honest, I'm not sure I view myself as queer despite being ace. Well, that's the thing, Jabai. It's a bit of a debate where there are people, not you, you're like, I don't know how I feel about it, who will be very, very deliberate in saying, yes, of course. And I'm like, I don't know. There are ways in which I can see it. Like I can see multiple arguments. I don't feel ace enough to be queer. Oh, but PH. But PH, you're valid, right? So like basically everybody gets to be queer now. Syndrome would argue that if everyone is queer, no one is queer. Sure, yeah, but again, rhetoric is a different space where we are now. We're in a very different rhetoric than we were before, and I'm just noting it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not endorsing it. I'm just noting it that we're in a space where. Because I just have two people saying that they're ace, they don't feel like they're queer enough. But just go on Twitter, you will get a million people telling you that yes, you are queer, you count, you matter, you're queer, you're part of this community, you are valid, your identity is valid, you're valid as a queer person. But Syndrome's a villain, so does that make him wrong? Can villains be right? So yeah. So I would say that if you want to be queer, you will get a lot of support. Sort of affirming your queerness, if that is what you want, or not. I mean, it's up to you. You're like, this is your identity. You do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, you do what you want to do, and then just think about what that means. There's a podcast called The Villain Was Right, so someone thinks they can be right. Yeah. So I just think it's complicated, and I just think what's important to sort of note and think about is how we have changed, how we think about these things have changed over time, what it means. And I think it's important to note that how we think about these things have changed over time because they'll change again. That's why I think it's important, because they'll change again. And what we think now, the way we think about things right now, that we're so certain is so true and so real and so fundamental, you know, like we feel it inside our very core being, may just not be how it is in 20 years. And I'm telling you, this is a person whose identity doesn't really exist anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like I have an identity that doesn't really exist anymore for a lot of people. It's in flux. So I'm just telling you, where you're at right now may not be a thing in 20 years. Wizard says, as an aromantic man, I fit very well into behavior patterns generally accepted as male. It's so hard for me to view myself as queer. But if all this leads to the world finally realizing that everyone is somewhere on a very wide spectrum, and there aren't just the male-female poles most people naturally gravitate to, then I'm all for it. Yeah, spectrum is great. Like, I'm like, we could talk about that, right? I feel like Trooper is going to come back to Freud being valid for upper-class Austrians of his time, and I think that's probably true. I think he probably was. Like, I think that he was probably valid for a subset of people, just not everybody. Ace does have some strong similarities with queer identities, so I can understand why it gets put in the same group. But I also have some differences. But I also tend to want to group things into smaller boxes than many do. Like, I would view trans and non-binary in a different group than homosexuals, etc. Lots of overlap for sure, but technically a different box. Well, but this is all about, like, mini boxes and larger boxes, right? So we're going to use the word queer for now, as a huge umbrella under which falls a bunch of smaller boxes. And yes, I need to go. I need to go right now. I need to go. Yeah, so like you can both then, and then you can have trans as a large box under which there are then smaller boxes. And so then these things can all, and of course, it's also tricky because trans and homosexual were not always different. The lines between them have not always been different. We have separated them very strongly now, but they were not always separate and not that long ago. So it's kind of a complicated thing. And then also, hey, Chromatic. Freud was valid for people who didn't like the scientific method. The scientific method also changed over time too, right? And also the scientific method for psychology is all a bit tricky. Yes. And so like they weren't always different boxes, and how we built those boxes have changed over time. See you, Chromatic. And also, balance my checkbook, eat food, go to bed before 2 a.m. Those are the things I have to do. Prep for Cthulhu Confidential. So yeah, and I just think it becomes important to sort of think about the ways in which things have changed and how they might change again, and how those boxes reconfigure in different ways. So like, I mean, right? I think for me, queerness implies a certain amount of visibility, like it can be seen. Oh, some people won't like that, Javai. Some people won't like that at all. There are people who won't like that at all, I'm gonna tell you. And for me, ace isn't really seen in public in that way, just a concept, a lot more involved. For example, bisexual people in relationships with people that seem heterosexual would be really irritated with the idea that you must be visible in that way, because they're gonna be like, well, then I don't look queer, but I'm still queer. So then like, what is queerness? Is it who you are? Is it how you're treated by society? Is it like, what is it? So like there are different philosophical, because you're talking about this concept, right? There are a lot of different ways of understanding what queerness is. And even that has changed. The concept of queerness that I grew up with when it was first reclaimed, because I'm from the generation that reclaimed the term, hetero presenting bisexual here. Right, thank you, Barum. Like, so there are people like, no, I may be presenting hetero, but I am queer, right? So like, that's gonna be a different thing. And so I'm from the generation that reclaimed queer, and queer did not mean, let me put it this way. Queer did not mean in 1992 what it means now at all. It didn't. There was a thing that people used to say, and then I'm going. People used to say this all the time. They'd say, you know what? That person is gay, but they're not queer. Or that person's lesbian, but they're not queer. There were straight people who were thought of as being queer in the early 90s, and there were gay people that would not be considered queer in the early 90s because it was a different concept than now. Okay, I'm going. I'm leaving. That's it. First off, I want to thank you all for being here. You all are amazing. I have enjoyed our stream very much, and we also got work done on Outer Worlds. We got forward momentum. We talked to both factions. We're moving forward. We did that, and that was exciting. So you should know, tomorrow at 1 p.m. on this channel Eastern, 1 p.m. Eastern, will be part 2 of Cthulhu Confidential. 1 GM, 1 player. That's Jackie Dash. Jakidash. And we're gonna sort of continue the adventure of a Howling Fog as the hard-boiled investigative reporter. That's Sunday. And then next week, you can find me Thursday here at 6 p.m. Eastern for Wandersong. Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern over at Laugh Love Lindy for Aether's Walkway. And then Saturday, more Outer Worlds. Will we have Sunday Cthulhu Confidential? I don't know. We'll find out. That's where we're at. The goat. I will note that for me, that queer as a word has limited value, so I'm more willing than others to have a narrow view of it. But I can understand that as meaning for others, and will retract my same with that. Oh, you don't have to retract it. It's just that it's complicated. And actually, I don't want you to retract our statement, Javai. I want you to keep it out there because it's important to note. I think it's really important to note that the word actually does mean different things in different time periods, because people forget that it actually has different meanings. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a definition that is just not really how people use it anymore, and that's interesting, right? So like I That's it. That's it. I just want us to know it. Hey, greetings from the Ville. How you doing, Hawkeye? No, don't retract it at all. Don't retract it at all. I think it's important. It's important that you said it, and I want it out there. Because the more we get these things, the more we can see that things are complicated, and the more we get into those spectrums. You know what I mean? These things are spectrums. All right, so you can find me here. You can follow and subscribe if you want. So either here or here. You can find me Trooper SJP here. You can find me at Trooper SJP on YouTube. You can find me at Academic Foxhole on Twitter. Also, we have a Patreon, which is Academic Foxhole, and that helps pay for the RPG shows so that I can pay the cast. And lastly, we have a Discord. You can join us there. The Discord is awesome. And it is what food will I have? I don't know actually. I think I'm gonna go to the pharmacy. I'm gonna walk down to the pharmacy and I'm gonna see if there's food on the way, and then that's what I will do. All right, that's it. That's it. We want different perspectives. We need the different perspectives so we can rethink our own. That's it. Take care of each other. You are awesome. I will see you in the Discord, and I will catch you on the flip side, and you all are the best. And next Saturday, so much Outer Worlds. You don't even know. It's going to be so much Outer Worlds. That's it. All right. Bye.